Chapter 764. Lu Yuanxi and the rest saw the doubt in Bei Yunji's eyes. She really didn't know what other schools there were besides Yun University. It was too infuriating. At the door, Teacher Wen also pulled Hiyu out to educate him. He smiled lovingly. Hiyu, I know your grades were quite good before you quit school. I hope you can get into a class in the future. Don't worry, I'll definitely get first place in the class. Hiyu was very confident. Oh no, first place in the cohort. Teacher Wen was speechless. Confidence was a good thing. Confidence was a good thing. Ahem, actually, being in the top 3 is also very good. Teacher Wen's tone became gentler. However, you have to dye your hair back. I don't care how good your family's relationship with the school is. In my eyes, students should act like students. This was the first time Hiyu had met such a teacher who looked polite but actually had a bottom line. However, his goal this time was to get first place in the cohort, so he naturally wouldn't argue with the form teacher. Teacher, I understand. Before Hiyu could finish speaking, Teacher Wen suddenly stuffed a few red notes into his mouth. He smiled and said, dye it back at noon. Hiyu. Okay. Seeing that Hiyu wasn't as playful as he had imagined, Teacher Wen's smile became even brighter. He patted Hiyu's shoulder. If there's anything you don't know, ask Bei Yunji and learn from her. With that said, Teacher Wen walked into the class. At this moment, Hiyu felt a little strange. Bei Yunji? This person didn't look like a good student at all. Thinking of this, Hiyu glanced at the exam bulletin board beside him. It was last semester's final exam. After searching for a long time, he finally found Bei Yunji in the 200th place. Hiyu couldn't help but laugh. With this ranking, he still wanted him to learn from Bei Yunji? Okay. He was going to get first place in the cohort. Thinking of this, Hiyu only looked up and fixed his gaze on the first place in the cohort, thinking about how long it would take to surpass this person. Not long after. After class. Immediately, people surrounded them. Master Pei, that newcomer is too arrogant. He actually said he's first place in the cohort. I just overheard that old Wen told him to work hard to get into the top 3 in the class. He said he wants to get first place in the cohort. Isn't he obviously looking down on you? Ever since she copied Bei Yunji's homework and caused Bei Yunji to be punished, everyone realized that this big boss was not as scary as they thought. After class, she would even come over to Bei Yunji to joke with her. Damn, are you looking down on our Master Pei? That brat is really arrogant. The two boys winked at each other as if they were about to start a crosstalk. However, just as Bei Yunji was about to lie down and sleep and ignore them, Teacher Wen suddenly returned from the door. Bei Yunji, your parents have applied for leave for you. Come here and sign the papers now. Bei Yunji hesitated. Which parent? Master Pei, did something happen to your family? Someone could not help but ask. Bei Yunji's eyelids twitched. I'm not sure. I'll go take a look. She only kept Washidu's contact information. But why did this man suddenly ask for leave for her? Just as Bei Yunji walked into the office with a puzzled expression, she looked up and noticed the parent contact number. It was a phone number. Bei Yunji had always had a photographic memory and recognized this number at a glance. Country A's Academy of Science. Bei Yunji, when was this added? What were these people doing? Bei Yunji looked up and asked, where did this call come from? Chapter 765. It should have been changed by the principal last time. Teacher Wen said without thinking. He did not find this number awkward at all. Bei Yunji was speechless. After Bei Yunji signed the form, Teacher Wen instructed, you can leave with the leave slip. However, in the next second, another phone rang. Teacher Wen glanced at it and answered the call. His eyes landed on Bei Yunji. Bei Yunji also looked at Teacher Wen, feeling that this call might be about her. However, a minute later, Teacher Wen hung up the call and was silent for a moment. This is also from your parents. They've applied for half a month's leave for you. Pei Yunja's eyebrows moved before she looked up and glanced at this phone number. This was Bai Mingzhang's private phone number. After Bai Yunj regained her senses, she nodded. I got it. Teacher Wen's expression was also complicated. This child had just entered her 3rd year of high school. Why were her parents asking for leave one by one? Weren't they afraid that she would fall behind in her studies? If the principal hadn't specially instructed Teacher Wen not to offend anyone from these 2 numbers when he left these 2 numbers last time, he wouldn't have approved Bai Yunja's leave either. These parents were really irresponsible. Yunj, when you're free, don't forget to revise your homework. Teacher Wen reminded her. Bai Yunj nodded. Don't worry, Teacher Wen. Teacher Wen sighed and waved at Bai Yunj, asking her to leave. She was a good seedling, but she had to meet such a mischievous parent. She actually applied for such a long leave for Bai Yunj during such a tense period in her 3rd year of high school. It was a waste of Bai Yunja's talent. Teacher Wen was infuriated. At the door, Bai Yunj received a call from Bai Mingzhang, asking her to go to the Academy of Sciences now. Half an hour later. Audiobook Alliance 52 Minhua Road, Country A's Academy of Sciences. Bai Yunj had just walked to the door when she was stopped and had no choice but to call Bai Mingzhang. However, she never thought that the person who came to pick her up would be Zhong Xinglin. Yunj, come in. When the security guards at the door saw that it was Mr. Zhong Xinglin who came out personally to welcome them, they couldn't help but be stunned. Who was this little girl? After making a phone call, it was actually Mr. Zhong Xinglin who came to pick him up. I'm sorry, Mississippi. It's my duty. After the security guard let him in, he immediately said. Thank you. Bai Yunja's lips curled up. After thanking him, she walked over to Zhong Xinglin's side. Old master, why are you here? Bai Yunj raised his eyebrows. It's all because of you. Zhong Xinglin's eyes were full of resentment, but there was also excitement in them. From time to time, the corners of his mouth would curl up. Bai Yunj, me? You'll know when we get in. After Zhong Xinglin finished speaking, he started to scold Bai Mingzhang angrily. What did Bai Mingzhang mean by this? He didn't even give you an identity card and let you be stopped outside. Hearing this, Bai Yunj finally remembered that Bai Mingzhang had asked her if she wanted to enter Country A's Academy of Sciences. She was busy at that time, so she said that she would listen to his arrangements. She had forgotten that she had already entered the research institute. I don't come here often either. Bai Yunj didn't care too much. However, the moment Zhong Xinglin opened the door, he started to question Bai Mingzhang again. Bai, what do you mean? You don't even give my an employee pass. With that said, everyone's eyes were fixed on Bai Yunj and they were shocked for a long time. What was this? She looked like she was only in her 20s. P.S. Babies, remember the monthly ticket. There are still 2 chapters left. Chapter 766. Er's identity card is different. It will be a little later. Bai Mingzhang's eyelids twitched as he immediately explained. After all, her identity was a secret. And the higher-ups also hoped to keep her identity a secret before Bai Yunj was fully fledged. This way, they could better protect Bai Yunja's personal safety. Therefore, even the people who came to the meeting today had signed a confidentiality agreement. They could not reveal anything about her. Yunj, what have you been busy with recently? Bai Mingzhang asked with a smile. Bai Yunj glanced at him slowly. I'm busy with the college entrance examination. All of a sudden, the atmosphere fell into a strange silence. College entrance examination. It was a long time ago. They thought that she was young, about 30 to 40 years old, so they signed the confidentiality agreement excitedly, wanting to see the new generation of scientific research geniuses in person. But they did not expect, she had not taken the college entrance examination yet. She was even prettier than those big celebrities on television. "So, why did you call me here today?" After Bei Yunj sat down, she looked up at them. "It's like this." Zhou Moping took a deep breath and said, "The organizer of this year's Ferris Prize said that they hope you can attend the award ceremony." Actually, everyone knew what was going on. This person had solved two of the most difficult questions in one go. There was no suspense at all about the winner of this year's Ferris Mathematics Prize. At the same time, the people present were suppressing their excitement. Their country had been suppressed for too long in terms of academic and scientific research. For decades, there had only been one winner of the Ferris Mathematics Prize in Country A. The overwhelming nomination this time had indeed brought shame to the scientific research community of Country A. Even their friends and teachers overseas called to inquire about her and expressed their admiration for her. However, the higher-ups requested for the news to be sealed, so no one dared to reveal it. "No, I'm not free." Bei Yunja's voice interrupted everyone's excitement. Everyone turned to look at her. Wasn't she excited at all about this highest honor award? Didn't they say that young people at this age were more or less vain? Why? Zhou Moping asked the question everyone present wanted to ask. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. In her past life, Meng Liang was the one who accompanied her when she received the award for the first time. At that time, she was a little happy. However, after receiving so many awards, Bei Yunj was no longer in the mood to prepare an acceptance speech to receive an award. "I want to focus on the project." After Bei Yunj finished speaking, only Si Chengyan casually exposed him. "Master Pei, listen to me. The money won't run away. After the old capitalists are squeezed dry, they can still be replaced with a new batch of squeezers." When everyone heard this, they suddenly remembered the two projects in Bei Yunj. Each one was more expensive than the other. It was simply a sky-high patent fee. No wonder others were so focused on their projects. With such an expensive patent fee, they were willing to stay in the research lab all day long. Bei Yunj glanced at Si Chengyan. "Yunj, don't worry. The higher-ups have already gotten someone to sign a confidentiality agreement with the law prize. Your identity won't be exposed." Bai Mingzhang also persuaded her, "You'll just go once. It can be considered a tour, okay?" Their mission this time was to persuade Bei Yunj to attend the award ceremony. After all, it had been a long time since their countrymen had won this award. This was a chance for them to hold their heads high. Chapter 767. Bei Yunj also frowned. "I'm not interested in Country R." As soon as she said this, everyone present felt inexplicably happy. They really wanted to record this for those people in Country R who looked down their noses and really thought that their country's researchers had no temper. At the same time, Zhong Xinglin also had an inexplicable feeling that if Bei Yunj went to participate in the Ferris Prize, something might happen. When this ancestor's temper flared up, she was even more unreasonable than those people in Country R. Bei Yunj said slowly, "And there's an exam tomorrow. I want to go back to school for the exam." She thought for a moment and added, "It's very important to be first in the level." Everyone was speechless. This was the first time they had seen someone give up the Ferris Prize just to be first in the level. They really didn't understand why she was so obsessed with high school life. Who present didn't skip a grade to go to university and directly study for their masters and doctorates? All of a sudden, Bai Mingzhang said, When your grandma received the biology award, there was an old math guy who humiliated her on the podium." Zhou Moping, Zhong Xinglin and the rest were speechless. Bai Mingzhang actually remembered such a long time ago? After that, didn't he punch that old guy backstage? Why was he still mentioning this? Wasn't he too vengeful? He and his son will also be going to the Ferris Prize this year, Bai Mingzhang said with a kind smile. Subsequently, just as everyone was confused, Bei Yunj looked up at Bai Mingzhang and asked unhurriedly, "When is the award ceremony?" Everyone was speechless. Was there such a thing? Bai Mingzhang smiled very brightly. 12 days later. We'll go a week earlier. Okay. Pei Yunj hummed in response. Immediately after, just as everyone couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief, they heard this person ask slowly, "What's that person's name?" Everyone was speechless. All right. He was going to cause trouble. However, Bai Mingzhang wasn't afraid of causing trouble at all. He directly searched for that person's information and placed it in front of Bei Yunj. Everyone was very disgusted by Bai Mingzhang's act of taking revenge for a private grudge. The next day. What Mr. Wen didn't expect was that Bei Yunj actually ran back to school for the exam. This moved Teacher Wen greatly. In the afternoon. After the exam, He felt that the exam this time wasn't difficult. It was more than enough to get into the top 3 of the grade. Who knew that at this moment? He suddenly heard the discussion in the corridor. Guess who got first place this time? A girl couldn't help but discuss with her companions. Guo Moran. The other girl thought for a moment and added, but Leia also has a chance. The physics question this time is very difficult, but it definitely won't be difficult for her. And the foreign language she was the worst at, it said that Leia lived abroad for the entire summer vacation. She even brought a local teacher to make up for her foreign language. After saying that, the girl couldn't help but sigh. This was probably the life of the rich. Her foreign language was not good, so she went to country R for the summer vacation. Next. Just as He finished listening and was about to leave, a round-faced girl with neat bangs looked excited. No, I think it's Bei Yunj. I'm in the same exam room as her. These words made He turn her head abruptly and look at the round-faced girl in disbelief. Bei Yunj? Is she first? The other 2 girls looked at each other uncertainly. After all, she often skips exams, they couldn't figure out her level. Chapter 768. Yes. It must be her. The round-faced girl said excitedly, I saw her answer all the questions. Upon hearing this, He chuckled and left with his glass of water. He thought that Bei Yunj was very good. Some people guessed that she was the top student in the cohort. In the end, she only answered all the questions. Could it be that she answered all the questions correctly? At the thought of this, He wondered if the students of Hengda had become stupid. After He left in disdain, the 3 girls were still discussing. She answered all the questions? The other girl was shocked. Every question? Yes, I saw that Bei Yunj was the only one who answered all the questions. The round-faced girl couldn't contain her excitement. When the other 2 girls heard this, they looked at each other. They had a feeling that the ranking of the cohort was going to be a battle between the gods. Guo Moran's results had always been good. No one could shake her position in the cohort. However, that was in the past. In the past, Bei Yunj would miss at least 1 or 2 questions. However, this time, for some reason, Bei Yunj suddenly became serious. It was really hard to predict who would come in first this time, Class 7. Seeing that everyone looked unhappy while the new student was beaming, someone couldn't help but ask. He how did you do? He was confident but said modestly, I might be able to get into the top 10. Although He had taken a break from school for a long time, he had finished his 2nd year of high school and hadn't forgotten much of his homework. He was a typical smart person. He had always been aware of his advantages. That's quite good. After the boy finished asking, he didn't have the courage to ask any more questions. He turned and left silently. Meanwhile, He sat in his seat and continued to study the questions that he hadn't finished. At this moment, the classroom was also filled with a lifeless atmosphere. Not long after, when Bei Yunj appeared at the door of the classroom with a straw in her yogurt, the eyes of half the class lit up. Ibeduo bookstore. Master Pei, have you answered the mathematics paper? Someone asked immediately. Bei Yunj nodded. Yes. With that, Bei Yunj placed the answers she had scribbled on the test paper on the table. When the others saw this, they immediately rushed forward to take the test papers. They scrambled to see Bei Yunj's answer. But this scene fell into He Yu's eyes. He Yu almost suspected that these people were bewitched. Using Bei Yunj's test paper as the standard answer? After a while, He Yu coughed lightly. I've already written my answer on the exam paper. His voice was neither soft nor loud, causing everyone to turn around. But a few seconds later, everyone turned their heads again and focused on snatching Bei Yunj's test papers. He Yu, this group of idiots, they still don't know who the real genius is, right? He Yu lowered her head angrily and continued to solve the questions. Bei Yunj was already sitting in his seat, aimlessly playing with the maps of the gods. Master Pei, I heard that the math test this time is very difficult. No one in our examination hall was able to answer the last question, Chu Zhixing said. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Yuanci couldn't help but look at Bei Yunj, waiting for her answer. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. Is that so? I didn't pay much attention. Lu Yuanci, Chu Zhixing, so, what was this person's true standard? Master Pei, what do you think you'll get? Chu Zhixing would always ask this question excitedly. Bei Yunj didn't even look up. First place. Chapter 769. If someone else had said this, they would probably think that this person was too arrogant. But when the other party was Bei Yunj, only one thought appeared in their minds: Bei Yunj was starting to act like a human again. Lu Yuanci was silent for a moment, then turned around to do his questions without saying a word. After all, among the three of them, his results were the most difficult to explain. But in fact, Lu Yuanci had improved very quickly, especially in mathematics and physics. He had already reached the average level. Oh right, I'll start taking leave tomorrow. It'll be more than half a month. Bei Yunj remembered and said casually. Half a month? You're going on vacation in your third year of high school? Lu Yuanci's eyelids twitched. Bei Yunj curled his lips and said slowly, work and rest. No need. When the time comes, help me take a photo. I'll just hand it in. Bei Yunj's lips curled up. Thank you in advance. Lu Yuanci's lips twitched, but Chu Zhixing said without hesitation, no problem. Chu Zhixing and Chu Zhixing were speechless. Then, Lu Yuanci asked again, then when the results of the entrance exam are out, do you want to come back and take a look? Yun University. In the office. Bei Yunj sat on the sofa and brought Si Qingyan upstairs. These few days. Bei Yunj was not idle either, but she was also conflicted about what reason she should find to ask her brother for leave to go abroad. Shouldn't we consider it carefully? Bei Yunj almost forgot about the K-assists. Her eyebrows moved, and she looked up and asked, Brother Yen, lend me your computer. Not long after, she saw a message from a familiar number. Max? I didn't get blocked by you, right? One was a hacker organization, and the other was an intelligence agency. It looked quite formal and was not a pyramid scheme. Bei Yunj looked down and saw the founder of the K-assists promoting his organization like a pyramid scheme. Her eyelids twitched. Okay. Si Qingyan's situation was intense and he had no time to care about Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj did not say anything. She sat in front of the computer and started to check the information about the K-assists and CI7. Agreed. She agreed. She's finally here. Lying on the sofa, K rubbed his forehead and heaved a sigh of relief. His months of hard work had not been in vain. Sure, I'll join. After she sent it out, in a certain office overseas. When K saw this message, he almost burst into tears. Yes. K smiled as if he had just been injected with chicken blood. He picked up the phone excitedly and contacted CI7. The higher-ups of CI7 were also very surprised after receiving a call from the founder of Chaos. K, Max agreed. The woman beside him was surprised too. She had seen with her own eyes how much Max disliked the Chaosists. He was not even interested in CI7. But to his surprise, Max actually agreed. CI7. You know about CI7 too? Si Qingyan instinctively looked at Bei Yunj. What happened? They didn't expect that K would recommend a newcomer to the organization. After Si Qingyan played the game, he saw that Bei Yunj's browsing interface was not closed and happened to catch a glimpse of the entry. Bei Yunj asked. The largest spy agency set up in this continent. From small individuals to large countries, we have comprehensive information on all aspects. Si Qingyan clicked his tongue. But CI7 is very mysterious. No member has been exposed so far. We only know that the founder is called Wuxia. Then, Si Qingyan turned around sneakily and said, I heard that person looks very scary. P.S. Be good and remember the monthly ticket. Chapter 770. Bei Yunj slowly glanced at Si Qingyan and looked away. She did not seem interested at all. Si Qingyan was speechless. This guy really never gave him face. 10 minutes later. Si Qingyan's takeout had just arrived. The two of them sat in the office and opened a bottle of beer each. Just as they were about to relax, someone suddenly barged in. He was burning with rage. Damn it! I've never seen such a group of students who are so difficult to control and bold. Hearing this, the two of them turned to look at the same time. The three of them stared at each other. The atmosphere was silent and strange. Bai Mingzhang's eyelids twitched. When he saw the braised food and beer on the table, he almost fainted. There was really someone even bolder. Bai Mingzhang's anger reached its peak. Si Qingyan. You brought Gu here to drink? Where was this? This was the office of Yunqing University. He asked Si Qingyan to keep an eye on Bei Yunj and not let anything happen to her before the award ceremony. However, Si Qingyan actually drank with a high school student? This was even worse than those brats from the junior class. No, Master Pei can hold her liquor very well. Si Qingyan explained, last time, she drank half of us in the Computing Institute alone. Bai Mingzhang rushed over and slapped the back of Si Qingyan's head without any reason. If I catch you leading Gu astray again, I'll teach you a lesson. Si Qingyan was speechless. Ever since Bei Yunj entered the institute, he started to take the blame everywhere. Bei Yunj said that she was hungry, so he secretly ordered it. Free Chinese in the end, Bai Mingzhang only dealt with him. This was great. In the past, old Master Zhong scolded him for no reason. Now, even old Master Bai was doing it. After Bei Yunj put down the wine bottle, she changed the topic calmly. Grandpa Bai, what happened? Why are you so angry? It's all because of those brats from the junior class. They actually went to a high-class clubhouse to have fun. This news almost couldn't be suppressed. Bai Mingzhang gritted his teeth in anger. This was the third batch of Yun University's junior class. However, each batch was more troublesome than the last. It was only a matter of time before Yun University's junior class was cancelled. There's nothing we can do about it. Those kids in the junior class are so arrogant that they won't listen to us. Si Qingyan smiled seriously as he drank. The junior class was famous for being unruly. After all, they hadn't passed puberty yet, and each and every one of them was a genius. It was normal for him to look down on teachers who were dumber than him. This was especially true for the junior class students that Yun University had recently recruited. Each one of them was more resourceful than the other. Two of them were slightly older and had already obtained academician qualifications. He sure knows how to have fun. Bai Yunj chuckled and slowly picked up some vegetables with her chopsticks. Bai Yunj was well aware of the fact that the students in the junior class refused to obey her management in her previous life. However, compared to Bai Yunj's time in the junior class, Yun University's junior class was indeed more playful. In her previous life, all the teachers who had taught Bai Yunj since elementary school were either her mother, Meng Liang's colleagues or Meng Liang's students. In fact, Meng Liang did not intend to let Bai Yunj enter the junior class at first. She was afraid that she would delay Bai Yunj's learning progress. However, it was Meng Liang's best friend's turn to be the form teacher of the junior class. After Meng Liang's best friend taught the junior class for half a year, she really couldn't stand the bad temper of the junior class. Hence, she chased after Meng Liang for half a year and asked Bai Yunj to transfer into the class. As expected. After Bai Yunj entered the school, the originally impetuous and arrogant atmosphere of the junior class changed rapidly. Chapter 771. And the name Bai Yunj had become a shadow in the lives of everyone in the junior class. This person was their first Waterloo in life. All along, they had crushed their peers and even their teachers. They thought that they had outstanding IQ and were true geniuses. However, who would have thought that a 14-year-old girl who had just transferred would crush everyone's IQ in a week? It even made everyone wonder if they were geniuses. Could it be that they had been immersed in their misconceptions for the past 10 years? After receiving a blow, in order to catch up with Bai Yunj, everyone in the class studied at night and chased after Bai Yunj. However, when they graduated, Bai Yunj received the highest honor in the mathematics world. Meanwhile, they struggled to get first place in the international youth competition under the age of 20. The school was very satisfied with the results of the junior class. However, the junior class students who had graduated from that year were deeply aware of the difference in talent, hence, they were forced to end their adolescence early and silently start to do scientific research. These brats don't even know how much resources the country has spent on them. Bai Mingzhang was furious. He sat beside Si Chengyan and gulped down half a can of wine. That's right. I heard that a girl in this year's junior class changed her nationality. Si Chengyan asked. When Bai Mingzhang heard this, he was silent for a long time before drinking his wine. Si Chengyan sighed. People always have to choose the best. No wonder she. Bai Mingzhang looked up. Do you know how much money the school spent to give her the best resources? 5 million. That's all our country's taxpayers' money. Did they pick it up for free? Bai Mingzhang was one of the first batch of overseas returnees to build the country and had seen war. He chuckled. That girl is especially talented in machinery manufacturing. The school has long been prepared to focus on grooming her. What about her? Did she change her nationality with the project? If there's King war in the future, it might be my student who built the machinery and killed me? Si Chengyan did not speak, but Bai Mingzhang was sulking. It was not because of anything else, but because this student was his favorite student that he had painstakingly taught. The outside world remained neutral on the matter of the girl changing her nationality, believing that it was a personal choice. But he couldn't do it. When he came back to teach, wasn't it to nurture talents for the country? But what was the result? This person even ran out and gave it to someone else for free? The foreign media were the best at picking the right words to say, science has no borders. If there were no borders, would their country spend so much money and subsidies to lobby researchers to immigrate? Have some chicken feet to cool down. Si Chengyan thoughtfully handed a chicken claw to Bai Mingzhang. Bai Mingzhang, what are you angry about? Look at us. Aren't we still sitting in Yun University's office eating chicken feet? Si Chengyan said with a smile. Pei Qian paused. When Bai Mingzhang heard this, his complexion improved a little. Indeed. This time, even the foreign media, who had always been there to watch the show, were a little anxious. The person who was nominated for both the Busaka and Farizik prizes had actually returned to A from our nation's computing institute to develop. Wasn't this the same as sending the treasure back to their doorstep? How could they be willing to accept this? However, no one had appeared so far. Even the contact method had to be through Marcus or the Computing Institute. Chapter 772. Country A's current confidentiality measures were so strict that it made one's hair stand on end. It was unrealistic to dig her out of Country A. Sensing Bai Mingzhang's kind and touched gaze, Bai Yunja's eyelids twitched. She decided to leave the office and go out for some peace and quiet. But she did not expect, at this moment. Si Qingyan gave Bai Mingzhang an idea. Elder Bai, I'll give you an idea, the catfish effect. Catfish effect? Bai Mingzhang was stunned. Si Qingyan immediately smiled. Yes, the catfish effect. If you want the little fish to have the ability to survive, why don't you put an active catfish in and make them nervous? Make them nervous. During this period of time, she had been finding trouble with him. It was time for this brat to experience the survival environment of the junior class. That's right. How could I have forgotten about her? Bai Mingzhang was puzzled. Where can I find someone who can make them nervous? Do you still need to find someone? Isn't there someone in the computer science department? Si Qingyan hinted desperately. Okay. Tell Gu, well later. Anyway, she has nothing to do during this period of time. It's not a problem for her to listen in on the junior class. After Bai Mingzhang finished speaking, the smile on Si Qingyan's face froze. Bai Yunj? Bai Mingzhang was excited. Seeing this, Si Qingyan's smile widened. He raised his glass to Bai Mingzhang. Come. Let's have a drink. Wait for me to. This was clearly a great white shark seedling. Only then did Si Qingyan realize that Bai Mingzhang was also bold. Yes. Bai Mingzhang did not think there was a problem. Si Qingyan's eyelids twitched. Do you think you're looking for a catfish? Si Qingyan was speechless. Sure, he had become a negative example again. This way, we can prevent someone from leading our Gu astray, Bai Mingzhang said with a smile. Ever since Director Lin personally cooked a meal for Bai Mingzhang had already treated himself as Bai Yunja's future grandfather. At this moment, Bai Yunj, who had just returned, also had a subtle premonition when he sensed Bai Mingzhang and Si Qingyan's gazes. When Bai Yunj was not around, Elder Zhong and Elder Bai still had a place in their hearts. Now, no matter where he went, he was despised. Bai Yunj was silent for a moment. Do you think I look like a student of the junior class at my age? She was already 19. The next moment, Bai Mingzhang smiled. Gu, you must be bored in the office all the time. Why don't we go to the junior class together? Bai Mingzhang nodded in agreement. If it wasn't for the fact that he had to repeat a year, he would be a freshman now. That's true. Before Bai Mingzhang entered the classroom, he heard the commotion inside. It wasn't until he entered the classroom that everyone quieted down. On the podium, the anger on the homeroom teacher's face had yet to subside. Until the afternoon. Junior class. Bai Mingzhang smiled. Little Ho, I've sent someone over to listen in. Hearing this, curiosity and disdain appeared in the eyes of the youths below the stage. Elder Bai, you, the homeroom teacher was stunned. Teacher Ho asked. Bai Mingzhang denied, oh no, it's a teaching assistant. Who could study in the same classroom as them? Could she be a genius too? An auditing student? Then, Bai Mingzhang turned to look outside. Gu, come in. With that said, everyone saw a girl with a bad expression walk in from the door, but she was too beautiful. Chapter 773. This new girl was even prettier than the prettiest girl in the art school next door. She's so young? Teacher Ho hesitated for a moment. Which school did she graduate from? She hasn't graduated yet. She's still in high school. Bai Mingzhang smiled. Teacher Ho? You put a student who hasn't graduated from high school in the junior class? And she's a teaching assistant? Teacher Ho's confusion was written all over his face. The people below the stage were also unhappy, but they didn't dare to say it in front of Bai Mingzhang. Then, introduce yourself. Teaching assistant? Teacher Ho asked tentatively. Bai Yunj, not long after. Bai Yunj casually glanced at the people below the stage. My name is Bai Yunj. As soon as she finished speaking, the class was silent. Teacher Ho and Bai Mingzhang were also waiting for Bai Yunj to say something. But in the blink of an eye, they realized that Bai Yunj was looking at them. Teacher Ho, good lord, it was already over. Find a seat. After class, I'll take you to Grandpa Tian's house next door for a meal. Take a good rest. Bai Mingzhang patted Bai Yunj's shoulder. Teacher Ho was sure that the old Tian that old Bai was talking about was Dean Tian Hejing from Yunonglin next door. Who exactly was this girl? She was so close to old Bai. When the others saw this, they immediately came to a conclusion. This person was old Bai's relative or a relative of a friend. She came to their class through connections. I've seen people who rely on connections to come to our class, but this is the first time I've seen someone rely on connections to come to our class as a teaching assistant. Her background is really strong. Immediately, someone mocked. However, his voice wasn't loud, and only a few students in the back row heard it. However, unexpectedly, the unbelievably good-looking girl in front also glanced at him leisurely. She sneered in a neither light nor heavy manner. Nuancai Literature Network. Everyone in the class heard it very clearly. A person who came in through the back door dared to look down on them? Suddenly, someone asked loudly, she's still in high school at the age of 19. What can she teach us? This made Teacher Ho's face stiffen, afraid that Bai Mingzhang would be angry. Unexpectedly, Bai Mingzhang paused and turned to look at Bai Yunj. That's right, Why are you still in high school? My grades weren't good, so I had to repeat a year, Bai Yunj said calmly. Bai Mingzhang? At this moment, Teacher Ho was also shocked by Bai Yunj's honesty. This was the first time Elder Bai had gone through the back door. Why is this little girl so careless? She dares to speak her mind. Similarly, when the students of the junior class heard this, they wanted to mock her, but because of Bai Yunj's calmness, they didn't know what to say. How dare this person say that? Grandpa Bai, I'll go to class first. After Bai Yunj finished speaking, she found a seat and sat down. Bai Mingzhang was like a doting parent. He couldn't help but take a few more glances before leaving. However, the next moment, someone stood up and looked at Bai Yunj provocatively. Teaching assistant Pei, which subject did you do well in? There are already students in our class who have successfully become academicians of the Academy of Sciences. Indeed, the country did its best to nurture these young geniuses. They were willing to open up another path for them. And this gave them the confidence to act arrogantly. My grades in all subjects are okay. Bai Yunj said slowly. These words made Teacher Ho, who was on the stage, a little stiff and awkward. Alright, class has started. Don't talk about such nonsense. P.S. We'll continue in the evening. Good boys, remember the monthly votes. Chapter 774. Seeing that Teacher Ho was trying to smooth things over, the others could only bear with it and keep quiet. However, what he did not expect was that Pei Yunj sat by the window and started to use a book to cover the iPad. She started to play recklessly in the drawer. When the students of the junior class saw this, they were even more furious. Although they did not pay much attention in class and even dared to play with their phones in front of the teacher. But that was because they had the ability to do so. What ability did this person have? She got into the junior class through her connections and became a teaching assistant because she was a repeater? Now she dared to play with her iPad in class? Where did she get the courage? Bei Yunj flipped through the literature and pondered about the problem of the project. She did not know what the children in the back row were thinking. But the calm did not last long. Teacher Ho found that this group of brats was absent-minded and even worse than when they did not pay attention in class. One by one, they made noises that disturbed the class. Feng Jiangwen. Teacher Ho roared with an ugly expression. Hearing this, the tall boys stood up reluctantly. Their expressions were sloppy, but their appearances were delicate. Get up. Demonstrate the solution to this question. After saying this, Teacher Ho threw the chalk on the table and walked to the side. Ever since these students had caused a ruckus and went to the high-class club, Teacher Ho had decided to teach these arrogant brats a lesson. After such a terrible thing happened, none of these brats repented. Even when they came to school the next day, each one was more arrogant than the other. When the students in the audience saw the question on the slide, they knew that Teacher Ho was going to give them a difficult problem. Feng Jiangwen originally laughed. He glanced at the question and was about to answer it, but the smile on his face gradually stiffened and his legs felt heavy. He could not move. This question, it was not a question that they usually solved. God of Dance e-book at this moment. Bei Yunj glanced at it and paused. This question looked inexplicably familiar. If you can't solve this question, you are not allowed to leave class. Teacher Ho said leisurely, you are all students with high IQ. If you can't even solve this kind of question, how can you leave class? After saying this, he glanced at everyone in the classroom and saw that their expressions were not very good. Teacher Ho was amused. This group of brats caused so much trouble every day, thinking that the world revolved around them. If he didn't let them experience the true pinnacle of the scientific research field, they would really think that they could become gods just by solving a question. Questions like, were more useful. He specialized in dealing with this group of rebellious and proud genius students. Mr. Ho was very happy. Bei Yunj, on the other hand, could not help but raise her eyebrows. She glanced at the students behind her with a strange look. She remembered that even Song Yao could stumble and write more than half of such similar questions. After all, in order to let Song Yao be chosen by Zhou Moping and enter his research institute, she had spent a lot of time developing Song Yao's thinking ability. At this very moment, in the eyes of these students, Bei Yunj's gaze was mocking and insulting them. No matter how bad they were, it wasn't her place to look at them like that, as someone who got in through the back door. Was she worthy of mocking them with such a gaze? I can't solve this problem, but I want to know if our class's teaching assistant can help us. Feng Jiangwen was about to ask Bei Yunj to stand up and embarrass herself when Bei Yunj interrupted him and rejected him slowly. Can the teaching assistant help you get an award in the future? P.S. On the highway, I'll make up for the missing updates tomorrow. Sorry. Chapter 775. These words made the faces of the students turn green and red. How could this person have the courage to say such words? What award had she won that she dared to mock them like this? It seems that our teaching assistant has a powerful background, Feng Jiangwen said sarcastically. Quiet. Teacher Ho immediately stopped the matter from escalating and said in a low voice. However, when the people in the class saw Teacher Ho defending Bei Yunj, they felt even more uncomfortable. Indeed, their academic circle relied on connections. It was no wonder that Lin Mo left and chose to emigrate to Country R. In Country R, Bei Yunj, who entered through the back door and had no ability, would be despised by everyone. Who would treat someone without ability as a teacher? Someone said sarcastically. This person seemed to have really come through the back door. However, when Teacher Ho heard this, he could not flare up. After all, when Teacher Ho heard this, he turned around and saw Jian Shi from the computer science department. In Yun University, everyone knew Jian Shi. Just as everyone was sizing up Bei Yunj with sarcastic expressions, a voice suddenly sounded from the door. "Teacher Ho, isn't your class dismissed yet? I heard that Principal Bai poached my teacher to be your teaching assistant." She raised her eyebrows and glanced at all the students arrogantly, but she was inexplicably cute. "Shi? Your friend is here?" Teacher Ho rarely saw Shi being close to anyone. Bei Yunj was Shi's teacher? Was this a joke? "Your teacher?" Teacher Ho was stunned for a moment before he looked at Bei Yunj. "Aren't you in class?" Bei Yunj asked. "But I want my teacher to teach me." She was also famous for not obeying management. However, she was much more low-key than the students in the junior class, so she did not cause any trouble. In the entire school, she could not find a professor who was willing to teach her. Bei Yunj was speechless. "So, she came here this time to declare her sovereignty?" Shi's fair and tender face was rosy and her eyes were bright. She naturally acted coquettishly towards Bei Yunj. It was obvious that she liked Bei Yunj very much. Shi, this was Yun University's famous grade-skipping demon. Looking at Shi's wary and sneering expression, Teacher Ho also felt puzzled as she scanned everyone present. Wasn't Bei Yunj just a high school repeater? However, there were also people who were unconvinced. He was just a computer science student. What was so great about him? How could he be Shi's teacher? When the other students saw that it was Shi, they fell silent. After all, Shi's ability was obvious to everyone. Mr. Ho was in a dilemma. At this time, Feng Zhangwen suddenly said, "If we can't solve the questions on the slides, we can't leave the class." This is what Mr. Ho said. "Teacher Ho, can you lend me your teaching assistant? I have so many things to ask her." She looked at Teacher Ho pitifully. But halfway through his words, his voice abruptly stopped. She glanced at Bei Yunj bitterly. Teacher Ho had an awkward expression. On the other hand, she glanced at the questions on the slide suspiciously. The more she looked at them, the more familiar they looked. She subconsciously muttered to herself, "Isn't this the type of question that my master sure had come up with?" Shi's heart was filled with jealousy as she muttered. "Old Bai is wasting too many resources now. Just this?" With this standard, she was willing to be a teaching assistant? To be a teaching assistant for the junior class. He was really something. P.S. I'm making up for it. Be obedient and remember the monthly votes. I'll add more chapters for the 9th place. There are still 6 chapters left. I'll add 2 more chapters for the 9th place. Chapter 776. She also knew that the junior class had gone to a high-class clubhouse. She had always been a bystander when it came to such matters. However, she felt even more indignant now that such a person who did not do her job properly could be their teaching assistant. Wasn't this a waste of her teacher's time? At this very moment, seeing that she was furious but did not dare to say anything, Teacher Ho could not help but glance at Bei Yunj. Who exactly was this person? If she was really not capable, why would she protect her? "Student Shi, I know that you are indeed good at computing, but our class is not your computer science department. If you can't solve the question on stage, why don't you stop us from solving the question?" Someone immediately said in a sarcastic tone. "That's right. What's so great about being the first in the computer science department? Do you really think that you are very capable?" Hearing that, Bei Yunj's gaze turned cold as he glanced at the person who had just spoken. This made the person who had just spoken feel a chill down his spine. He instinctively did not dare to look into Bei Yunj's eyes. Shi's lips curled up when she heard that. "If I solve it, will teaching assistant pay be mine?" Before Teacher Ho could speak, he saw Shi holding a piece of chalk and starting to solve the question. At this moment, Teacher Ho realized that Shi's mathematics seemed to be much scarier than before. In the past, Jian Shi's mathematics ability was not weak and was amazing. However, it was not as scary as now. This was a question of, was Jian Shi doing the question of, as if it was a basic question? At this very moment, Bei Yunj sat below the stage and saw that Jian Shi's solution was much clearer than before. He could not help but raise his eyebrows lazily. About 3 minutes. Jian Shi was about to solve the entire question. Teacher Ho could not help but be stunned when he saw Jian Shi's solution. The process of solving this problem was even more clear than his own. Jian Shi, your math. Qiandu Chinese website. Teacher Ho even suspected that Jian Shi had applied for the wrong major back then. Her mathematics was not inferior to computer science at all. The people below the stage froze bit by bit as they watched, feeling like they were losing face. Wasn't Jian Shi from the computer science department? How could she solve such a math problem? From the looks of it, he was able to solve it with ease. Jian Shi's cheating behavior was undoubtedly a slap to the junior class's face. Everyone's faces were ashen, but they didn't know what to say. After solving the problem, Jian Shi placed the chalk on the table and asked with a smile, Teacher Ho, can I go out with my teacher pay? Ho Laosher took a long time to react before replying. Class dismissed. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the junior class was no longer as noisy as it used to be. Instead, it was dead silent, there was no sound at all. The talent that they were so proud of was now being trampled to pieces. Jian Shi did not look at them. She just blinked and looked at Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj stood up and asked with a smile, what do you want to eat? Anything is fine. Jian Shi immediately went up and held Bei Yunj's shoulder, chattering with Bei Yunj. They could tell that Jian Shi liked this teaching assistant who had gotten in through the back door. A short while later, Bei Yunj went to the washroom first while Jian Shi came back to help Bei Yunj carry her things. Jian Shi hugged Bei Yunj's iPad and glanced at them with a smile. However, the words she said were completely different from her attitude in front of Bei Yunj just now. Are you qualified for her to teach you? Chapter 777. Teacher Ho looked at Jian Shi's sudden change in attitude. Question mark. Wasn't he still here? The people in the junior class also choked until their faces turned red. What right did a backdoor assistant have to say that they were not qualified for her to teach them? I really have to hand it to old Bai. He treats my teacher as cheap labor. Jian Shi had an exquisite appearance, but her eyes were cold. She rarely spoke in such a sarcastic tone. Your talent is actually just so-so. Isn't it? Instantly, the atmosphere became even colder. This was the first time Teacher Ho had heard someone mock the students of the junior class. But this person was Jian Shi, the ace student of Yun University. Teacher Ho, I'll go back first. Jian Shi carried Bei Yunj's iPad and straightened her back as she left. The faces of everyone present turned ugly. At this moment, Teacher Ho was also surprised to see the junior class suffer in front of Jian Shi. But then, Teacher Ho smiled and said, Jian Shi is the ace student of Yunqing University. She skipped a grade. However, Jian Shi had already entered the research institute when she was in her first year of high school. She spent more time on computers. These words were like slaps to their faces. Jian Shi spent more time on computers, but in the end, her mathematics was still better than theirs. When you used the talent you were proud of to look down on others, you should have thought that someone would look down on you because of this. Teacher Ho said indifferently. After Teacher Ho left, Feng Jiangwen's expression was ugly. He could not help but kick the table over. What's so great about a teaching assistant? Feng Jiangwen was furious. The others were very silent because of Jian Shi. Jian Shi's slap really hurt them. TXTA computer science student had solved a question that their entire class could not solve. Moreover, why would a person like Jian Shi protect this teaching assistant who had gotten in through the back door? At the door, Jianxi pestered Bei Yunj and asked, "Teacher, so you'll be at Yun University these few days?" "Yes, I'll go to our nation next week." Bei Yunj answered and handed the milk tea to Jianxi. Physics award ceremony? When Jianxi heard this, her eyes couldn't help but twinkle. She was so excited that she was about to jump up. Bei Yunj stretched out his hand lazily and pressed down on her head to prevent her from jumping up. "Yes, it's just a name. Jianxi, just a name change." There were only 2 people in Country A who had been nominated, and one of them had won an award. And this time, her teacher had solved 2 of the questions, so he would definitely win a prize. Otherwise, the mathematics community would tear this unreliable award apart. This was a question solver of the 1008 questions. Furthermore, he had solved 2 at once. "You should try the remaining questions when you're free." Jianxi heard this. Isn't this inappropriate? Ever since Jianxi was pulled into Jasmine and Ticha's group, she realized how scary her teacher's students were. Almost all of them had won international awards. As for her, she had never participated in any official international competition. Bei Yunj gently pinched her cheek. "Just try. You'll get it done eventually." Jianxi's aptitude was very good and was not inferior to Tich and the rest. Jianxi, who did not dare to refuse, was speechless. Her teacher didn't find anything difficult at all. However, if she wanted to win the Physics prize, she would need at least 7 to 8 years. Chapter 778. The next day. When Jianxi brought Bei Yunj around the campus, Yu Ling, who was not far away, happened to walk over. Her smile froze. "Bei Yunj?" Yu Ling asked subconsciously. When Feng Jiangwen heard this, he subconsciously looked at Bei Yunj. His gaze turned cold. "Senior Yu, do you know her?" Yu Ling regained her usual expression and smiled. "We've met a few times, but she doesn't have a good impression of me." It's not her place to point fingers at someone like Senior Yu Ling. Feng Jiangwen's tone was sarcastic. It was obvious that he had a deep prejudice against Bei Yunj. Yu Ling looked at Feng Jiangwen in surprise. During this period of time, Feng Jiangwen had been constantly asking her out. Yu Ling knew that this boy probably wanted to woo her. However, Yu Ling did not like boys younger than her. Moreover, this Feng Jiangwen was too different from Fu Yanbai. Therefore, Yu Ling only maintained her image and occasionally accompanied him out for a walk. Did she get into Yun University? Yu Ling could not help but ask. She remembered that Bei Yunj was only in her 2nd year of high school. When Feng Jiangwen heard this, he sneered. Whether she can get into Yun University or not is still a problem. However, she is now a teaching assistant in our junior class. Teaching assistant? Yu Ling was indeed very surprised. After all, an existence like the junior class was still quite distant to ordinary people. "Senior, why do you think a repeater can be a teaching assistant in our class?" Feng Jiangwen put his hands in his pockets with a mocking expression. Yu Ling laughed and said instead, "Miss Pei's family background is something I can't envy. With a background like mine, I can only rely on myself." Feng Jiangwen immediately said, "A girl like Senior Yu Ling is a good girl." He said word by word seriously, "I also like Senior Yu Ling very much." Yu Ling hid the surprise in her eyes and joked, "Really? Thank you, Junior Feng." After that, Yu Ling avoided this topic again. In the afternoon, Bei Yunj had just bid farewell to Jianxi, who had class in the afternoon. When she walked into the class, she saw a boy holding a book and standing hesitantly by her desk. She raised her eyebrows, and after a moment, her eyes met the boy's. "Assistant. Assistant Instructor Pei," the boy stuttered nervously, "I have a question. I want to ask you." Bei Yunj remembered that she was still a teaching assistant. She nodded and drank some mineral water. She tightened the cap and walked to her desk. "Take a look." The boy immediately took out the question and showed it to Bei Yunj. The third question. What do you think? Bei Yunj's gaze fell on this page and he casually glanced over it. The direction of the first question is wrong. Check the conversion of the second question again. The general idea of the third question is like this. Bei Yunj pulled out a piece of paper and a pen from the drawer with one hand and wrote down a few more steps. After the boy heard this, he was completely stunned. Assistant instructor Pei, this. The boy scratched his head awkwardly. Bei Yunj paused for a moment before realizing that he did not understand. The boy lowered his head and did not dare to look at Bei Yunj. I'm sorry, assistant instructor. I've always been at the bottom of the class. I don't have any talent. At most, I'm just a stepping stone for them. They are real gold. Bei Yunj glanced at him and thought for a while before putting down the mineral water. She changed her way of solving the question and wrote down the complete steps again to explain the question to him. However, probably because he was nervous, the boy only understood it on the third try. Chapter 779. I'm sorry, Assistant Pei. I don't think I'm very smart. After the boy finished speaking, he lowered his head in embarrassment. Bei Yunj sat back in her seat and stopped drinking water. The two of them looked at each other. The boy was instantly embarrassed. Bei Yunj thought for a moment before she consoled him. It's okay. There aren't many smart people in your class. The boy was speechless. This was a very special way of consoling him. However, the boy still felt that Bei Yunj was deliberately saying this because she disliked the students in the junior class. He didn't think that even Teacher Ho would need some time to analyze his answers for these questions. However, Bei Yunj only needed to glance at the questions and she could tell that he was right or wrong. Can I consult you more often in the future? The boy asked nervously. Normally, Bei Yunj would not have the patience to teach him. She was not interested in things that were too basic. This was something that Tich and Jasmine knew very well. However, Bei Yunj could also tell that the boy in front of her, who was about 3 years younger than her, was introverted and had low self-esteem. She was silent for a moment before she said, "Sure, but I'll be leaving Yun University in a few days." When he heard this, the boy was a little disappointed. Aren't you going to be working for a long time? Bei Yunj chuckled softly. Do you think I have such a good temper? The students in the junior class were notoriously difficult to manage. Bei Yunj had always been good at using violence to curb violence. Bei Yunj glanced at the name on his exercise book and said casually, Suja. Not everyone can reach the end of the path of scientific research. However, no one can prove that there is only gold on the road to the end. Suja was stunned for a moment. His heart was inexplicably touched. After a long while. Pippi Reading Network. Suja looked at Bei Yunj in front of him and suddenly mustered up the courage to ask, Assistant Pei, do you teach any students? Bei Yunj stopped playing with her phone. After a moment, she looked up at Suja and said, I don't teach students anymore. This made Suja a little disappointed. But the next moment, she said slowly, if you like computers, you can try entering a computing institute in the future. Computing institute? Suja knew about this Institute of Computing Technology. It was the top institute of computing technology in the country. It was said that he was poached by this institute. However, this computing institute was very difficult to enter, especially after there were rumors of a new member of the computing institute. The people who went for the interview were almost all the top talents in computer science. I'm in this house. Bei Yunj suddenly said. Suja was both shocked and impressed. Really? Teaching Assistant Pei, you're amazing. I heard that he is also in there. You're actually from the same computing firm. Bei Yunj, over the past few days, only Suja would come to Bei Yunj to ask questions. But when they saw that Suja often asked for questions, the others also had some doubts. Not far away. Someone whispered, "Look, Suja is asking that teaching assistant questions again. It's been 2 or 3 days, right? This Suja is really discerning. He knows that she has a strong background and goes to please her every day." The girl next to her sneered as she touched up her makeup. "But does that teaching assistant really know how to solve our questions?" When the girl heard her companion's question, she also laughed sarcastically. "What's so great about knowing how to solve it? That idiot Suja's standards are so poor. What's so difficult about teaching him?" Chapter 780. Just nice. Feng Jiangwen, who had returned, heard their discussion and glanced at Suja, who was on Bei Yunja's side. He sneered, "He's indeed an idiot." He kicked the stool and said weakly, "There are 5 spots for the junior class competition this time. If you want to go with me, you'd better decide today." Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard this. Feng Jiangwen was the son of the dean of Yun University. In addition, he had a son at an old age, so he was especially doted on. And almost every spot in the junior class was recommended by Feng Jiangwen. This time was no exception. When Feng Jiangwen left the classroom with the basketball, the girls behind started discussing excitedly. "Look! The big boss with a real background is in the class, okay? Soon. That's right. Look at that idiot Suja. He was rejected 3 times. This time, he actually dared to offend Feng Jiangwen and stand blindly." Someone mocked, "What's the use of sucking up to the teaching assistant? Can the teaching assistant let him have a spot in this competition?" Si Qingyan took a sip of tea and continued watching the horror movie. He said leisurely, "Hey, isn't Master Pei the teaching assistant of your precious junior class? Let Master Pei choose." Hearing this, the principal's eyes landed on Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj had just returned to his office when he saw the current principal looking for Teacher Ho. "Where's Teacher Ho? Don't they care about their class's spot in the competition?" Si Qingyan was speechless. Indeed, the big-shot teaching assistant did not care about the lives of the students at all. Bei Yunj glanced at Si Qingyan calmly and said slowly, "Until now, I only remember 1 student." Principal Zheng was speechless. Bei Yunja's evaluation was already very high. Si Qingyan's eyelid twitched. "Yunj, what's your impression of that student?" Principal Zheng asked. "His talent is average, but he's quite hardworking." "Interesting. Even an outsider like him could not stand it anymore." However, Jasmine and Tich liked their teacher. They liked her very much. "What's that student's name?" Principal Zheng asked. In her heart, was there anyone with good talent? Jasmine and Tich, geniuses who were 1 in a million, were despised by her. Principal Zheng put a tick next to Suja's name list. Bei Yunj nodded casually and continued to look through the documents. Bei Yunj said, "Suja. I don't think he's participated in a competition before. Let's let him participate this time." Everyone saw that there were 5 registration forms, and one of them had already filled in a name. Suja. Afternoon. Everyone turned around and found that Suja's seat was empty. How is this possible? Feng Jiangwen hadn't filled it in yet, so why did Suja fill it in first? "Are you sure you didn't write it wrong?" Someone exclaimed. Why was he assigned to participate in the competition? That was impossible. For the past few days, Feng Jiangwen's attitude towards the teaching assistant had been so bad, and Suja was obviously trying to curry favor with the teaching assistant. Someone asked subconsciously. Could it be that Feng Jiangwen gave it to her? How could Feng Jiangwen treat Suja so well? At this moment, Feng Jiangwen happened to return. He glanced at the registration form and frowned. "Don't take my registration forms. Put them back. I'll choose the remaining 4. Usually, Teacher Ho did not care about this matter. Because he knew Dean Feng, he gave the right to choose the candidates to Feng Jiangwen. However, this time, it was an accident. Chapter 781. No one expected that Principal Zheng would throw the matter to Bei Yunj when he couldn't find Teacher Ho. Suddenly, the student who came to deliver the name list hesitated. But, the principal said that the quota for this competition will be decided by the teaching assistant of your class. As soon as he finished speaking, there was silence in the hall. Feng Jiangwen froze and instinctively turned back to ask, "What did you say?" The male student was embarrassed. "This form has to be handed over to the teaching assistant of your class." "What right does she have to allocate the quota for our class?" Feng Jiangwen directly threw the mineral water bottle on the ground. He was furious. "This is arranged by Principal Zheng." Seeing this, the male student was stunned for a long time. When the others heard this, they had nothing to say. They were shocked for a long time by the identity of the teaching assistant. She knew Principal Bai and Principal Zheng. What was her background? Feng Jiangwen gritted his teeth. In the end, he suppressed his anger and sat in his seat without saying a word. However, unfortunately, at this moment, Suja happened to come back. After seeing the registration form in the boy's hand, he pondered for a moment, took a deep breath and went forward to ask. "Feng Jiangwen, can I sign up for the competition?" Although he had applied for the competition several times and was rejected, he still wanted to give himself a chance. "Suja, don't you already have a quota? I saw a registration form that has been filled out. Your name is written on it." Someone whispered. "What?" Suja was stunned. When Feng Jiangwen heard this, he suddenly raised his head and looked at Suja in disbelief. "Soon." Feng Jiangwen gritted his teeth and sneered. "Suja, you're really good. You're not good at answering questions, but you're so good at unorthodox methods." Seeing the situation in the junior class, the male student who came to deliver the registration form felt that the atmosphere was too tense. "The teaching assistant of your class, the next second." Feng Jiangwen suddenly stood up, grabbed Suja's collar and dragged him to the side. Suja was pale and thin. His face immediately turned red. When the others saw Feng Jiangwen's action, they didn't dare to stop him. Feng Jiangwen was the son of Dean Feng. Who dared to provoke him? The seniors who fought with Feng Jiangwen before were all persuaded to leave. "Why don't you King solve these questions for me?" Feng Jiangwen pressed his neck rudely. It was obvious that he was venting his anger on Suja. His tone was sarcastic. "You're a stupid pig. Do you even deserve it? Student. What are you doing in school?" The male student who sent the form immediately. "Don't be a busybody." Feng Jiangwen turned around and sneered, his face full of hostility. "Why don't you try and see who will be the one to drop out of school in the future?" When the male student tested, but he was no. "Suja, you're just a useless piece of trash." 2. TSS. Je. You piece of trash, why did you think of it like that? Why don't you beg me? Feng Jiangwen had been aggrieved for the past few days. Now that he had the chance, he didn't hold back at all. When the others saw this scene, they also felt that Feng Jiangwen had gone overboard, but no one stopped him. After that, just as the male student threw down the form and was about to help Suja, a basketball hit Feng Jiangwen's head accurately. P.S. Good guys, remember the monthly ticket. Chapter 782. Feng Jiangwen's vision turned black for a moment and he almost fell forward in a sorry state. When everyone saw this scene, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Who was so bold? Who dared to hit Feng Jiangwen? This was Dean Feng's biological son. Immediately after, everyone turned their heads and saw Bei Yunj, who had just returned from playing basketball. Bei Yunj placed a bottle of mineral water on the table. Her overly beautiful eyes were undisciplined, but they inexplicably made people feel cold. Do you like to cause trouble for yourself so much? Bei Yunj smiled faintly, and the coldness in her eyes was frightening. Feng Jiangwen had already been hit once and had no intention of tolerating it. "Bei Yunj, how dare you hit me?" Feng Jiangwen's words seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth. It was so eerie that it was frightening. This person was really detestable. It was just as Yu Ling had said. She was daring because of her connections. But this time, he was also prepared to let this person know how she had kicked an iron plate. Did she really think that she was so great just because she knew Bai Mingzhang? She was just a high school repeater. Could it be that Bai Mingzhang would protect her like she was his granddaughter? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows, licked her lips, and said unhurriedly, "Get out of here now. It's good for everyone." As soon as she finished speaking. At this moment, the students in the junior class realized that their assistant could no longer be described as bold. When Feng Jiangwen heard this, his face turned even darker. He stared viciously at Bei Yunj. "Bei Yunj, do you think I don't dare to hit a woman?" Feng Jiangwen's joints creaked. No one doubted that Feng Jiangwen would very likely hit Bei Yunj at this time. Bei Yunj sneered playfully, walked in front of Feng Jiangwen, and said slowly, "Listen, what you should be thinking about now is whether you want to crawl out or get out of here." Feng Jiangwen's gaze turned fierce and he reached out to strangle Bei Yunj's neck. But just as everyone's hearts were in their throats, they saw Bei Yunj's slender hand grab Feng Jiangwen's wrist just like that. The next moment, the crisp sound of bones cracking could be heard, sending chills down one's spine. What followed was Feng Jiangwen's unprepared howl of pain. "Assistant! Assistant Instructor Pei," Suzhou subconsciously shouted, he's Dean Feng's." Before Suzhou could say anything, Feng Jiangwen was grabbed by the collar by the skinny girl in front of him and thrown out. Feng Jiangwen staggered and held onto the desk by the door, almost falling to the ground. But then, Bei Yunj, who was walking over, lifted her leg and kicked Feng Jiangwen's but without hesitation. Feng Jiangwen immediately fell to his knees. He was beaten to a sorry state. Seeing this scene, everyone felt a pain in their buttocks, as if they had just survived a disaster. He originally thought that this was a girl who needed protection, but who would have thought that this beautiful girl was actually a ruthless person? Bei Yunj's usually upturned eyes were cold. She dragged Feng Jiangwen by the back of his collar and walked down the long corridor. Feng Jiangwen had no strength to struggle. The passers-by were stunned by this scene and did not dare to make a sound. It was only when they turned a corner that Bei Yunj threw Feng Jiangwen towards the trash can. Feng Jiangwen almost fell into the trash can. You, Feng Jiangwen's face was pale. One of his hands was in so much pain that he could not feel it. After being kicked by Bei Yunj, he felt as if his bones were about to fall apart. At this moment, the way he looked at Bei Yunj had changed. Chapter 783. This person was really terrifying. Feng Jiangwen saw that Bei Yunj was still approaching him and his heart was in a mess. He gritted his teeth and said, Bei Yunj. I'm Dean Feng's son. If you don't want to cause trouble, you'd better. Before Feng Jiangwen could finish his words, he was slowly interrupted. Is that so? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and then turned to leave. When Feng Jiangwen saw this scene, his eyes darkened. He had just made a fool of himself because of Bei Yunj. How could he let Bei Yunj off? Feng Jiangwen's eyes were full of hatred. He picked up the abandoned wooden plank next to him and limped towards Bei Yunj. He suddenly raised the wooden plank and threw it behind Bei Yunj. This scene was frightening to watch. But no one expected the situation to change in the next moment. Before Feng Jiangwen's wooden plank could hit Bei Yunj suddenly grabbed his other wrist. This made Feng Jiangwen unable to move. Bei Yunj glanced at him and sneered softly. There was a playful and cold light in her eyes. So you like to court death so much? Then, before Feng Jiangwen could react, he felt a pain in his knee. The next moment, he knelt in front of this unbelievably beautiful girl. The girl in front of him looked down at him condescendingly. Suddenly, the corners of her lips curled upwards. She raised her foot and kicked him in the shoulder. Feng Jiangwen fell to the ground. Bei Yunj stepped on his chest and there was a dull pain in his chest. Seeing this scene, some people went directly to the principal's office and the dean's office to find someone quickly. 10 minutes later. Dean Feng rushed over anxiously. When he looked up, he saw his arrogant son being stepped on by a girl. "What are you doing?" Dean Feng's expression changed and he immediately shouted. Hearing this, everyone turned around and saw Dean Feng. They knew that Bei Yunj was in big trouble. This was Dean Feng's son. Wasn't Bei Yunj courting death? At this moment, Bei Yunj was the only one who turned his head to glance at Director Feng leisurely. Then, he continued to pour the half-filled bottle of water into the glass. Feng Jiangwen choked on the cold water that splashed on his face. "You!" Dean Feng's face was ashen as he pointed at the audacious person not far away. "Why aren't you stopping?" Bei Yunj only loosened his grip after he finished pouring the water. He tightened the bottle and slowly threw it into the trash can. In the dean's office, the director's assistant was wiping the water off Feng Jiangwen's face. His heart ached as he said loudly, "Isn't this behavior too bad? This is a student of the junior class. What kind of bear's heart and leopard's guts did you eat to dare to hit someone?" The people outside could hear the scolding from inside through the door. Dean Feng's expression turned ugly. "Which branch are you from?" Bei Yunj didn't say anything. Feng Jiangwen pushed the dean's assistant aside and sneered, "She is the new teaching assistant in our class. I think she is still studying in high school. She repeated a grade in her 3rd year of high school. She can come to our school as a teaching assistant in her 3rd year of high school?" Dean Feng narrowed his eyes. If it were any other time, he wouldn't have offended such a person. After all, it was obvious that she had connections. But now, Bei Yunj had slapped him in the face. She even dared to hit his son. He didn't care what connections she had. He had to give him an explanation today. "Call your parents here now," Dean Feng said coldly. Chapter 784. When Bei Yunj heard this, he didn't panic at all. He glanced at him casually and asked, "Which parent?" "The one who made you a teaching assistant." Dean Feng sneered. He wanted to know who was so capable as to arrange for an ordinary repeater to be a teaching assistant at a top school like Yun University. What right did she have? Bei Yunj thought for a moment and lazily called Bai Mingzhang. Bai Mingzhang, who was in Yun Nonglin next door, took a deep breath when he received the call. Wait for me for a while. I'll come as soon as possible." Bei Yunj hesitated but didn't ask further. "Okay." After hanging up the phone, Bai Mingzhang calmed down and looked at Tian Hejing, who was holding the dog leash. "Old Tian, I only grabbed a handful of vegetables. You don't have to be so calculative, right?" Tian Hejing's face darkened and he sneered. "A handful of vegetables? If I didn't come, my vegetable garden would have been destroyed in your hands again today." With that said, the hound beside Tian Hejing was already glaring at Bai Mingzhang fiercely. It stuck out its tongue and drooled. "Old Tian, is looking for me. Let's settle this next time, okay?" Bai Mingzhang looked at the students outside the door and felt a little embarrassed. He could only cough lightly and say, That's. Tian Hejing reacted and immediately lowered his voice. "Old Zhong's precious daughter?" "What old Zhong's daughter? From now on, she's my biological daughter." Bai Mingzhang raised his head arrogantly. "Tian Hejing, don't be so smug. Lanjun didn't even look at you, and you're already treating someone else's daughter as your own?" "Did she say what happened?" Tian Hejing asked. Bai Mingzhang then remembered. "I think so. She had a conflict with someone at Yun University. Tian Hejing. It seemed that this daughter was very talented and had a very strong temper. In the dean's office of Yun University's main residence. Hit someone? If you dare to hit someone at Yun University, don't even think about becoming a student of Yun University in the future. The dean's assistant was already scolding him. Dean Feng was sitting at his desk, drinking tea. Feng Jiangwen rubbed his wrist and sneered at Bai Yunj. He was not in a hurry to go to the hospital. He wanted to see with his own eyes how unlucky Bai Yunj was. When can I leave? Bai Yunj was getting a little impatient. You still want to leave? The assistant wanted to say something, but he was interrupted again. Director Feng glanced at Bai Yunj and laughed. You can leave after your parents come and apologize to my son. When Feng Jiangwen heard this, he leaned back on the sofa with his head held high. He was in a good mood. Bai Yunj glanced at Director Feng and licked his lips. Sure. Seeing that Bai Yunj was not anxious at all, the dean's assistant beside her felt that this was the first time she had met such an arrogant student. Director, we must let Hengda High School deal with this student properly. How can you hit someone in school? As soon as he finished speaking. Suddenly, the door was pushed open. Everyone saw that it was the former principal of Yun University, Bai Mingzhang, and Tian Hejing from Yuncheng Agricultural University. They were stunned. Director Feng choked on his words. Principal Bai, Principal Tian, why are you two so free to come to my place? He subconsciously asked. However, the two of them ignored him and walked straight to Bai Yunj. Gu, let me see. Are you hurt? Chapter 785. I'm fine. Bai Yunj looked at Bai Mingzhang in front of her, tugged at her sleeve, and sized her up. She was relieved. You said you had a conflict with someone. Don't you know to look for Si Chengyan? What if you're injured? Won't that old fellow Zhong Xinglin strangle me to death? After Bai Mingzhang finished speaking, Dean Feng and his assistant heard a familiar name. Zhong Xinglin, was that the person they were familiar with? The director of the Computing Institute, Zhong Xinglin? What did this girl have to do with Zhong Xinglin? At this moment, Bai Mingzhang reacted and frowned. Who had a conflict with my Gover? He didn't look like he was here to reason. He looked like he was here to cause trouble. Dean Feng braced himself and said, Principal Bai, I thought you didn't care much about Yun University anymore? When Bai Mingzhang heard this, he turned around and smiled. Why? I don't have any say now that I've retired. Alright, get your current principal to come over. When Bai Mingzhang said this, Dean Feng's heart skipped a beat. The current principal was Bai Mingzhang's student. It was impossible for Principal Zheng not to stand on Bai Mingzhang's side. Principal Bai, it's like this. Bai Yunj's teaching assistant hit my son, Feng Jiangwen, in front of everyone. And I'm the principal of the school. I can't just sit back and do nothing. Dean Feng's words were all Bai Yunj's fault. Tian Hejing was a little surprised. He didn't expect Lan Jun's temper to be able to raise such an unreasonable girl. Gu, why did you hit him? Bai Mingzhang didn't think that Bai Yunj would hit someone for no reason. Bai Yunj glanced at Feng Jiangwen on the sofa and said leisurely, self-defense. Feng Jiangwen's expression changed. He suddenly remembered that after leaving the classroom, Bai Yunj indeed didn't hit him. Instead, Bai Yunj only started to hit him after he did. Feng Jiangwen immediately said without thinking, she hit me in the classroom too. My hand is broken and I can't feel it. Other than his hands, Feng Jiangwen actually felt the most pain in his buttocks. However, he was too embarrassed to say it in public. Bai Yunj stood there lazily and glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. He did not intend to speak. But not long after. Suddenly, a voice came from outside the door. He attacked me first, so Assistant Instructor Pei had no choice but to act. When everyone heard that, they saw Suja in a blink of an eye. Suja covered his forehead, pursed his lips, and put down his hand. The side of her fair forehead seemed to have been scratched by the edge of the desk, leaving a trail of blood. Indeed, it didn't seem like it was done by him. Behind Suja was Si Chengyan. It was obvious that Si Chengyan had not arrived in time and had gone to find someone for Bei Yunj. Nonsense. Dean Feng's face turned cold as he reprimanded. At this moment, Bai Mingzhang's cold gaze swept over him. Why? Must you speak the truth only if you help your son? Principal Bai, I remember that you don't have a granddaughter. Dean Feng braced himself and asked. Indeed, she's not mine. She's Lanjuan's granddaughter. Do you want to talk to Lin Lanjun about this? Principal. Principal Lin? Dean Feng's expression changed. Lin Lanjun was also highly respected at Yun University back then. If she hadn't taken the initiative to retire, she would have been the vice principal of Yun University back then. However, many of the teachers of Yun University now were students who had received Lin Lanjuan's favor. At the side, Feng Jiangwen's originally smug face had already stiffened. Chapter 786. Dean Feng, do you still remember that the junior class went to a high-class clubhouse a few days ago? Si Chengyan walked in and naturally stood beside Bei Yunj. He smiled and said, you should know best who the organizer is. Dean Feng panicked. What nonsense are you talking about? He looked up and said fiercely, Si Chengyan, don't think that just because you're the youngest professor at Yun University, everyone's tolerance for you has no limit. I don't know if there's a limit to everyone's tolerance for me. But Dean Feng's tolerance for his son has never been lower. Si Chengyan laughed. Dean Feng, why is your son in the junior class? Si Chengyan. These words made Dean Feng panic for some reason. You should have revealed the questions for every junior class exam to your son, right? Si Chengyan said slowly, otherwise, why is Feng Jiangwen's results always the worst in every competition? With that said, Suja looked at Feng Jiangwen in disbelief. It was true that Feng Jiangwen rarely did questions in class, but his results were always very good. As a result, everyone felt that Feng Jiangwen must be the student with the highest IQ in the class. And that time, Teacher Ho had come up with a question that the entire class did not know. Hence, no one realized that something was wrong. No. Impossible. I have a high IQ. Feng Jiangwen stood up and immediately retorted. Si Chengyan did not speak. Feng Jiangwen was indeed quite smart, but he was only a little smarter than normal people. However, he was still a little far from being a real genius. At this moment, Bei Yunj glanced at him when she heard this. Soon. Bai Mingzhang said, this matter has a bad impact. There's also school bullying. I'll get someone to investigate thoroughly. With that, Bai Mingzhang asked the dean's assistant to leave with Bei Yunj and the other students. He was alone with Dean Feng and the rest. Dean Feng, you should be glad that your son didn't hurt anyone. Otherwise, even you would have to pay the price. Bai Mingzhang's expression turned cold. Dean Feng's expression was ugly. Principal Bai, you're protecting Bei Yunj. Letting a repeat student like her be a teaching assistant in the junior class is probably more shocking than my news, right? Hearing this, Si Chengyan chuckled as well. Dean Feng is still quite naive. This matter cannot be exposed. Dean Feng was stunned. Why? Tian Hejing, who was standing next to him, said unhurriedly, that's because the higher-ups are not allowed to disclose her information. Finished speaking. Dean Feng's expression changed drastically. People whose information was not allowed to be made public were usually protected by the country. How could such a person be related to the scientific research community? There was only one possibility. Genius. A true genius. Even the students of the junior class couldn't compare to him. Impossible. It must be fake. How could she have that kind of talent? Dean Feng found it difficult to accept this fact. Bai Mingzhang looked at him for a while, then sneered. He said coldly, "Today, if she's hurt even a little bit, Yun University's junior class might be disbanded." Dean Feng's face immediately turned pale. The others didn't say much to Dean Feng. After all, Director Feng was not qualified to sign the confidentiality agreement and know Bai Yunja's identity. After Bai Mingzhang and the others left, Director Feng almost fell onto the sofa. Chapter 787. Dean Feng's face was pale and his mind was buzzing. How could this be? When did such a person appear in their circle? At the door. Feng Zhangwen's face was ashen as he gritted his teeth and looked at Bai Yunj. "Bai Yunj, why did you come to the junior class?" If it wasn't for her, his father wouldn't have offended Principal Bai. With Bai Yunja's background, she didn't need the reputation of being the assistant teacher of the junior class. "I'm free." Bai Yunj glanced at him and her phone vibrated. She took out her phone, glanced at Suzhi, and left. "Go and treat your wounds first." "Okay." Suzhi looked at Bai Yunja's departing figure with a complicated gaze. In the end, he made a bold decision. He wanted to enter the computing institute. By the window. Bai Yunj picked up the phone and said leisurely, "What's wrong?" Shang Yan's gentle voice sounded from the phone through the current. "I need you to come to our nation." "When are you free?" Bai Yunj raised her eyebrows. "Around the day after tomorrow." Shang Yan seemed a little surprised. He paused for a moment and asked, "Farisk prize?" "Yes, I'll go over and settle something on the way." Hearing Bai Yunja's words, Shang Yan also chuckled. "Okay, then let Nyayu pick you up. I need you to confirm a few research and development products for Higgins." Bai Yunj had never seen Nyayu before. She only knew that he was Shang Yan's assistant. "Okay." After hanging up, Bai Yunj was about to go back when another call came in. It was an unknown number. Bai Yunj raised her eyebrows and hung up. On the other side. CI7 Yunqing branch. Jiang Song hesitated for a moment before confirming one thing. Wenxin School. He was hung up by this new member of the chaos. Jiang Song, this was the first time someone had hung up on him. Jiang Song endured it and took a deep breath. He couldn't be angry. The higher-ups had said that this was a big shot who had single-handedly defeated all of hibernating Lion 173. He had to give the big shot a little more care. After dialing another number, Jiang Song began to flip out. "What's wrong with you K-assists? Max isn't picking up the phone." The one who answered the phone was the deputy leader of the Chaos Men, Yin Shasha. Yin Shasha rolled her eyes, but her tone was very gentle. "Max doesn't like to answer the phone. I suggest you send a text message." After that, Yin Shasha hung up the phone. What a joke. How did he think Kay got in touch with Max? If they called Max every day, Max would lose her temper and tear them apart. Wouldn't it be polite and amiable to send a text message to inform the big boss first? Jiang Song's face darkened after being hung up on for the second time. The K-assists were simply too arrogant. Did they think that they wouldn't want anyone else other than the K-assists? Afternoon. Bai Yunj was eating shaved ice when her phone suddenly vibrated. She took it out and saw that it was a message from the unknown number. "Max, have you been too busy recently? I'm Jiang Song, the director of the CI7 Yun City branch. I'd like to invite you to the Yun City branch for a simple understanding. You can set the time and the address will be sent to your phone. Is that okay? I'm looking forward to meeting you." Bai Yunj raised her eyebrows and remembered that there was such a matter. Soon. Bai Yunj lazily stirred the shaved ice with one hand and replied to his message. "Sure." Jiang Song took a look and immediately replied to Bai Yunja's message. "You're not coming recently?" Are you very busy recently? Chapter 788. Bei Yunja's beautiful eyes narrowed. She bit her small spoon and typed a message. Yes, get an award. On the other side, Jiang Song was speechless. Get an award? Jiang Song turned his head and asked his companion, do you know Max? Is she an artist? Have you read too many romance novels? How can a hacker be a part-time artist? The boy with curly hair laughed. Jiang Song was even more puzzled. Then where is she going to get an award? What? To get an award? Let me see. The guy with curly hair immediately snatched the phone and looked at the simple chat history for a while. Finally, he said, Boss, you're such a lackey. Jiang Song's cold gaze fell on the guy with curly hair. The guy with curly hair shook his head. It's a man's act to endure humiliation. Jiang Song didn't have time to argue with him. He just couldn't help but ask, is there any particularly important award ceremony in the next few days? It was actually more important than entering C-17. Thinking back, when they first had a meeting with C-17's internal staff, they couldn't sleep in the middle of the night and couldn't wait to fly over to sign the agreement. This person, on the other hand, had a full schedule. They still had to make an appointment with her. Recently? Yes, Country R's Farisk Prize, the guy with curly hair said straightforwardly. Jiang Song was speechless. What did you say? The guy with curly hair thought that Jiang Song really didn't hear him clearly and started talking non-stop. The Farisk Mathematics Prize is the highest honor in the mathematics world. Those who can win this prize are geniuses among geniuses. Then do you think this prize has anything to do with Max? Jiang Song smiled slightly. Wasn't this lower than the probability of Max being an artist? The guy with curly hair thought for a while. Aren't those who study computer science very good at mathematics? Good your head. Jiang Song slapped the back of the guy's head to wake him up. He had read too much, hadn't he? The next day. The punishment from the higher-ups was quickly handed down. Feng Jiangwen was temporarily suspended, but Dean Feng was dismissed. This matter spread like wildfire in the school. Feng Jiangwen's expression was even worse. He didn't speak to anyone for the whole day. Until noon. The competition of the junior class began. In the conference hall. Bei Yunj was sitting in the third row. When she saw the results of the junior class in Yuncheng, she quickly lowered her head and played with her phone. Fortunately, Teacher Ho's ability to withstand pressure was strong. He could still maintain a fake smile. 311. Yuncheng University's Junior Class 3, Beichuan University's Junior Class 11. As the top university in the country, Yun University had lost miserably this time. Yun University's enrollment was much stricter than Beichuan University's. However, the students of Yun University's junior class thought that their high IQ and ability could suppress everything and were unwilling to work hard on their studies. So this was good. This time, the people from Beichuan next door were rubbing their faces against the ground. Until today, the students of Yun University's junior class finally realized that they did not have the right to be at ease. Seeing the dejected faces of the students of Yun University's junior class, Bei Yunj also felt that this competition was a very good lesson. Teacher Ho, calm down. Bei Yunj glanced at Teacher Ho. He was probably thinking of Tich and the others, so he suddenly became gentler towards Teacher Ho. Teacher Ho was a little surprised by Bei Yunj's sudden consolation. Read, 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 he sighed. We're probably going to lose this competition. What's so important about losing? Bei Yunj's understanding words made Jian Shi, who was playing games at the side, slowly turn to look at her. Last time, when Jasmine was careless in the competition and almost tied with the second place, she remembered that Bei Yunj did not say that. Bei Yunj's original words were, "Fortunately, you won this time. Otherwise, I really don't know if I should start teaching you from the elementary school curriculum again." Their teacher's damn desire to win. You're right. You have a good mentality. Teacher Ho nodded in agreement. Only Jian she lowered her head and did not dare to speak. Bei Yunja's eyes were still bright and unruly. There was a lazy smile on his face as he lazily supported his chin with one hand. Until the intermission. When the students on the stage came down, people from Beichuan University next door laughed. Are they really from the junior class? Why are they not much different from the high school class? After asking, there was a burst of laughter next door. This made the Yun University junior class students who came down from the stage turn green and red. Lost? Teacher Ho asked indifferently. The junior class students fell silent. They began to understand why Teacher Ho was so strict with them. No matter how talented they were, there would be times when they would be eliminated. They're definitely not from the junior class. One of the students looks like she's about 19 or 20 years old. A girl with a round face said angrily. At this moment, the Beichuan University students next door heard it clearly. Then you should find a student who's 19 or 20 years old to come up together. Our class is not afraid, the junior class student next door said arrogantly. Hey, their class's assistant looks like she's only 19 or 20 years old. Someone suddenly interrupted. This made Bei Yunj, who was playing with her phone, stop. Soon. The assistant next door walked over. She was a girl in her mid-20s. She smiled and said, since that's the case, why don't your school's assistant give it a try? The assistant is so young. We do want to know the standards of your school's teachers. Teacher Ho's body stiffened. Until now, Teacher Ho had always thought that Bei Yunj had gotten in through the back door to become an assistant. She was probably not even at the level of their junior class. There's no need. Bei Yunj did not even raise her head and rejected her calmly. As for the others, they looked at the young assistant from Yun University. She did not seem to care about the outcome of the junior class at all. She could even play the maps of the gods so calmly. A thought immediately appeared in their minds. This assistant is probably a fake. No wonder the standards of Yun University's junior class were so bad. Can anyone from Yun University be an assistant? Someone mocked softly. That's right. Our Beichuan's junior class assistant is already a doctoral student. Half of the students in Beichuan's junior class were students who had failed to get into Yun University. Therefore, they had accumulated a lot of resentment towards Yun University. When the people from Yun University's junior class heard this, they felt like they had been slapped in the face for the first time. It's none of your business. A boy from Yun University's junior class said unhappily. It was not because he had a good relationship with Bei Yunj. He only felt that Bei Yunj was being mocked this time mostly because they couldn't win. In the end, half of the responsibility was on them. That's right. What does my standards have to do with her? She's just an assistant who's temporarily in our class. Another girl glanced at Bei Yunj and said coldly. At this moment, Jian she was a little surprised. This group of people was not hopeless. She could not help but turn to look at Bei Yunj. She was waiting for her reply. Chapter 789. These students weren't too bad. It was just that their maturity couldn't match their high IQ for the time being. You're so protective of your class's assistant. Is it because your class's assistant is really bad? Beichuan students seized the opportunity to mock them. At this moment, the junior class of Yun University was so angry that their faces turned red. However, before they could speak, the person beside them suddenly stood up. She slowly bit down on the rubber band on her wrist and casually tied up her long hair. Bei Yunj smiled nonchalantly. Her eyes were lazy and impudent. She was also in high spirits. Then thank you, Beichuan, for being willing to give us a chance to redeem ourselves. As soon as she finished speaking, the junior class of Yun University was speechless. Forget it, forget it. Don't be calculative. This person will leave tomorrow. Moreover, they couldn't beat her. After Bei Yunj walked out, her bright and beautiful eyes glanced at them casually. She said lightly, "How embarrassing." The junior class of Yun University was speechless. These words made the junior class of Yun University furious. However, in the next moment, they saw Bei Yunj standing on the stage. Aren't you going to continue the competition?" After Teacher Ho reacted, he didn't know how much confidence Bei Yunj had, so he could only let her do as she pleased. Anyway, she couldn't win this time. However, when the second round of the competition began, she held her face with both hands and looked at Bei Yunj with bright eyes. She looked like a fangirl. "Teacher Ho, don't worry. There won't be any accidents this time." Teacher Ho was stunned. "You mean, she can win? How can my teacher lose?" She smiled. Teacher Ho was speechless. Could he still believe the words of a fangirl like her? On the stage. Looking at the free questions on the screen, Bei Yunj casually pressed 5 questions. Everyone looked at the big screen. Yuncheng University chose the 5 questions with the highest scores. This made the legs of the junior class of Yun University go weak. Did this master know that if she wrote a wrong question, she would lose double the points? Otherwise, why would there be so many questions left? Now, she had directly picked the question with the highest score, 5 points per question. The participating students looked at their teaching assistants expressionlessly. This time, he was probably going to get a negative score. They began to suspect that the teaching assistant was holding a grudge against them and was purposely making things difficult for them. "This, contestant? Are you sure you want to ask 5 questions at once?" The professor below the stage could not help but ask. These questions were set according to the standards of the International Mathematics Competition. At this moment, Si Chengyan happened to take off his earplugs and accidentally saw the person on stage from the corner of his eye. Si Chengyan was speechless. Who the hell put this person up there? Wouldn't Yun University be accused of cheating in the future? Losing wasn't shameful, cheating was. Wait, who put this person up? Si Chengyan stood up and asked. This was the first time that everyone had seen this young and handsome professor with a dark face. On the stage, Bei Yunj glanced at him calmly. It was suggested by our university's teaching assistant. "I don't think it's a big deal," the professor from Beichuan next door said generously. Si Chengyan was speechless. When you lose until you can't get up later, you won't think it's a big deal. Wasn't letting Bei Yunj PK a group of kids from the junior class equivalent to a max-level big shot entering a novice village? P.S. Be good and remember the monthly votes. Chapter 790. This doesn't conform to the rules, does it? Si Chengyan gave a fake smile and shot Bei Yunj a look to get her off the stage. However, Bei Yunj glanced at him and only smiled with curved eyes. Si Chengyan was speechless. Why didn't this guy have any self-awareness as a big boss? Why? Are you afraid that your teaching assistant will lose too? The professor smiled. It's okay. It's just a friendly competition. Si Chengyan was speechless. Fine, you asked for it. He had tried his best. On stage. No one rushed to answer the next few big questions. Even the neighboring Beichuan only dared to fight for 3 points at most. Bei Yunj, on the other hand, did not even blink when she answered the questions with the highest scores. 3 5 points, 1 6 points, and 1 7 points. If she could do this, they would call her ancestor in the future. The students of Yun University were silent, but that was what they were thinking. On the other hand, Bei Yunj picked up the chalk and glanced at the question. Then, she started writing without looking up. This smooth process of answering the questions made the Beichuan professor next door, who was originally leisurely, gradually stiffen all over. The Bei Chuan professor next door took a closer look and his eyes suddenly widened. What is she doing? After a while, Professor Do, who had arrived late, suddenly felt that the person on stage looked familiar. This person, suddenly. Professor Do reacted. Bei Yunj? He quickly turned to ask Si Qingyan, why is she up there? Si Qingyan lowered his head, not daring to look at the cruel massacre that was about to happen. The teaching assistant next door invited me to see this person's ability. Professor Do couldn't help but turn around and look at the professor next door with mixed feelings. They, Bei Chuan, were getting more and more beaten up. As long as you're happy, Professor Do only said. Love network at this moment. The expression of the teaching assistant next door also changed. She couldn't even smile. Initially, she just wanted to ridicule the people from Yun University, but she didn't expect that this young-looking teaching assistant was actually not someone who got in through the back door. Her solution has a hint of success. A professor who was watching the show laughed and nodded in appreciation. Si Qingyan could not bring himself to smile. Isn't that so? This wasn't just a little bit, this was the real deal. Si Qingyan started to feel heartbroken over Bei Yunja's inhumane behavior. This guy, couldn't he show some kindness to the flower buds that couldn't withstand the wind and rain? Gradually. After watching Bei Yunj finish one question after another, the professor next door could no longer sit still. He tried his best to resist the urge to drag the person on stage off the stage. In his heart, he regretted letting this person go on stage. Who on earth was this person? Even professors like them might not be able to finish writing as quickly as Bei Yunj. Suddenly, Bei Yunj stopped at the third question. She turned her head and asked, "Can I just write the answers?" The professors on the judging panel were speechless. The students of Yun University and Bei Chuan University were speechless. Were his connections so wild? This was the first time he had met someone who asked him to write down the answer directly. The eyelids of the students of Yun University's junior class twitched. They suddenly had a premonition. They seemed to have underestimated this teaching assistant of theirs. No. Si Qingyan did not care about their old relationship and was impartial. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. Her casual gaze made Si Qingyan's hair stand on end, and he turned his head away. But who knew? The next moment, Bei Yunj slowly picked up a piece of chalk with her left hand. P.S. Be good and remember the monthly votes. Chapter 791. Just as everyone was confused, they saw the girl on stage casually glance at the blackboard and start answering the questions with her left hand. At the same time, her right hand was still writing. This scene almost made the Bei Chuan junior class and professors, who had been smug just now, hold their breaths. Their hearts ached. Was this something a normal person would do? At this moment. Not to mention the people from Bei Chuan, even the people from Yun University felt suffocated when they saw this scene. On the other hand, the big boss on stage was still a little impatient. Her good handwriting gradually became perfunctory, and only the final answer was concise and clear. Si Qingyan instinctively covered his face with his hand, unable to bear to look at it. He remembered that the first time he saw Bei Yunja's actions, he was also stunned. However, he later found out that Bei Yunj was really a research freak who could come up with the answer and process in her mind just by looking at the question. It was real. It was because the speed of her hands could not keep up with the speed of her brain that she had such an operation. However, in the eyes of others, Bei Yunj was already writing the questions. She was like a humanoid problem-solving machine. When Bei Yunj finished writing the questions, the students from the two schools could not help but wonder if they were really geniuses. Were they not retarded? Was there really no mistake? Then what's with this strange person? It's about time. Bei Yunj casually threw the chalk into the blackboard and slowly returned to her seat. The Yun University students beside her suddenly felt suffocated by the big boss sitting beside them. The minds of the students from Yun University's junior class were in a mess. They felt even more ashamed than the students from Beichuan. Where did Principal Bai find a godly assistant for them? However, in the past few days that Bei Yunj had been working, none of them had asked any academic questions. All of them had been given to Su Zhe. Below the stage, Feng Jiangwen, who was about to record this scene and expose Bei Yunj for getting in through the back door, gradually turned pale. Hanba literature, how is this possible? How is this possible? Feng Jiangwen could not believe it. However, in the next moment, after the professors finished giving the scores, they heard an electronic notification sound in the hall. The system scores are continuously updated. Yuncheng University, Beichuan University 31-11, as soon as he finished speaking. The people from Beichuan next door were having a mental breakdown. It was 3:11 just a moment ago, and now it was suddenly 20 points ahead of them. How the hell were they going to chase after her? As for the students from Yun University, they were frozen in place. They felt that this competition was a one-sided slaughter by their assistant professors. There was no need for them to exist. It wasn't until now that the students of Yun University's junior class looked at Bei Yunja's lazy profile that they finally understood, this teaching assistant was truly a god. Perhaps it was because of the huge difference in points, the arena fell into a dead silence. Suddenly, Bei Yunj rested her chin on her hand and smirked as she said slowly, "The teaching assistant next door? Why don't you answer a question too? It's just a friendly match for fun." Hearing this, the expression of the teaching assistant next door instantly turned ugly. To be honest, she didn't even have the confidence to get full marks for the questions that Bei Yunj had just done. How could this be? Since he was the teaching assistant of Yun University's junior class, he wasn't some weakling. His strength could even be said to be terrifying. Then why hadn't this group of students in the junior class improved at all? The expression of the teaching assistant from Beichuan didn't look too good, but at this moment, her students on the stage were all looking at her with hopeful eyes. P.S. I'll continue to update later. Be good and remember the monthly votes. Chapter 792. Beichuan's assistant took a deep breath, stood up, and walked onto the stage. Then, she glanced at the remaining 5-point questions and mentally prepared herself for a few minutes before checking the remaining questions. As long as she answered all 4 5-point questions correctly, she would be able to get back her points. However, she was not confident that she could get back her points. The Beichuan professor below the stage could not help but take a deep breath when he saw that their assistant had finally finished a question but stumbled on the next question. He said, "Assistant, forget it. Come down." The strength of that girl just now was too frightening. It was basically impossible for their school's assistant to win against her. This was something that everyone present could see. When Assistant Du heard this, she pursed her lips and broke the chalk with her fingers. In the end, she left the stage with an ugly expression. No matter how the students behind called out to her. In the end, without any suspense, Yun University's junior class won. However, the atmosphere below the stage made those who did not know better think that Beichuan had won. A Beichuan student patted a Yun University student on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Brother, your class is awesome. Your assistant is so strong that she can even drag an aircraft carrier, right? After a year, you guys still haven't made any progress?" Everyone in Yun University's junior class was silent. This time, their class had won, but it was even more embarrassing than losing. Soon, the other Beichuan students surrounded them. They did not hold a grudge against Bei Yunja's ruthlessness during the competition. Instead, they asked with admiration, "Where did your assistant come from? She's too amazing. This is the first time I've seen someone answer questions with both hands." "That's right. She's so good-looking too," another girl said excitedly. At this moment, there were also boys who asked curiously and mockingly, "You guys are really strange. Even such a powerful assistant can't carry you guys. Did you guys donate your brains behind your assistant's back?" Yun University's junior class, you're the one who donated your brains. Your whole family donated their brains. I'm going back to do the questions. One of the boys could not stand it anymore and turned to leave. Hearing this, the others also went back one by one, preparing to stay up late. This competition had completely woken them up. In terms of talent, there was always someone better than you. And their talents were not enough for them to lie down and become winners in life. Even after receiving the medal, Teacher Ho still felt like he was floating. In the corridor, his sharp eyes saw Si Chengyan and immediately went up to grab Si Chengyan's hand. Professor Si, what's going on? Then, didn't Yunj get in through the back door? Si Chengyan thought for a moment and said frankly, yes. Mr. Ho. If that's the case, why is she at this level? When Si Chengyan heard this, he chuckled. It's precisely because her standards are high and your class is the focus of our school's nurturing that she got in through the back door. When Teacher Ho heard this, he immediately reacted. She was indeed arranged by Principal Bai to enter through the back door. But in reality, this person had entered through the back door, and the final beneficiary was their class, she. Who is she? Teacher Ho's eyelids twitched. He had never thought that the person who got in through the back door would be an ancestor. Could a normal high school student solve a problem with 2 hands? What's more, this was a difficult question from an international mathematics competition. Chapter 793. Don't be anxious. You'll know in the future. Teacher Ho knew that Si Chengyan was not a person who liked to be mysterious, but looking at Si Chengyan's annoying appearance today, he still wanted to hit him. Then will she come to us again in the future? Before Teacher Ho could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Si Chengyan. Old Ho, that's enough. It's already the luck of those brats that she came to be your teaching assistant for a few days. Si Chengyan patted Teacher Ho's shoulder and left with a smile. Hearing this, Teacher Ho wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, when Teacher Ho returned to class, everything on Bei Yunja's table had disappeared. Where's Assistant Pei? Teacher Ho asked. Teacher Ho glanced at the people present and saw that they were no longer like before. There was not even a pen on the table and it was filled with a pile of books. He said, she won't study hard. Maybe you'll see her again in the future. With that said, someone said softly, the assistant seems to have left and taken everything. Teacher Ho was silent. Then, someone said carefully, Teacher Ho, will the assistant still teach us in the future? I don't know. Anyway, we definitely can't do it now. Our standards are too bad. No wonder the assistant doesn't like us. What kind of god is the assistant? Can I still reach the level of an assistant in my life if I answer questions with both hands? These conversations did not seem like the usual style of conversations in the junior class. Teacher Ho walked down and was about to clean the classroom when he suddenly realized that the rubbish bin was filled with extracurricular entertainment. He was stunned for a moment before he heard the students discussing softly. How awesome must she be to see the assistant? Bei Yunj was still thinking about how to tell Huashidu about going to our nation tomorrow. Bei Yunj had only wanted to slow down this matter, but she did not expect it to be delayed until today. Bei Yunj was speechless. All of them seemed to have improved a little and were no longer arrogant. Back home. Bei Yunj called out instinctively. After she regained her senses, she glanced at Qin Yu and said after a long while, second brother. Qin Yu did not mind that Bei Yunj called him reluctantly. Instead, when he heard his gu call him brother, he could not help but be overjoyed. He still had to face what he had to face. Bei Yunja's thoughts were uncertain. When she walked into the living room, she looked up and found that Zhong Xinglin and Qin Yu were both there. Elder Zhong? The meaning in Huashidu's eyes was unclear. He glanced at the documents on the table lazily and caressed the silver lighter with his slender and good-looking fingers. Obviously, this information was not something that could be prepared in a day or two. The child was hiding something from him. Gu, we're talking about you going to our nation for an exchange, Qin Yu said with a smile. Bei Yunj was stunned and looked at Zhong Xinglin in confusion. But soon she realized that Zhong Xinglin was asking for leave for her. Thinking of this, Bei Yunj subconsciously turned her head and looked at the man beside her who hadn't spoken a word. When Qin Yu looked up, he found that his Gu-er's beautiful eyes were staring straight at Huashidu, who was sitting at the side. Qin Yu, he suddenly had a bad feeling. Then, does brother agree? Bei Yunj asked. Qin Yu said without thinking, what's wrong with agreeing? But in the next moment, he felt that something was going to go out of his expectations. Huashidu slowly buttoned up the loose and sexy buttons on his collar, his dignified eyes calm and elegant. Chapter 794. I also think Elder Zhong's suggestion is very good. Perhaps. This is very important to Union's future development. Zhong Xinglin nodded with a smile. Don't worry, Mr. Hua. We've discussed this with Hengda High School. When the time comes, we will definitely ensure Gu-er's safety and return within 10 days. With that said, Huashidu was about to say something when Qin Yu suddenly spoke. What does that have to do with anything? Coincidentally, I'll be filming an MV in Nili for the next half a month. Gu can come with me. With that said, Qin Yu looked at Bei Yunj. Gu, can second brother go with you? Hearing this, Bei Yunj glanced at Huashidu and said after a while, up to you. Seeing this, Qin Yu started to suspect if Master Du had brainwashed his Gu. Why did Gu listen to him so much? Then this matter is settled. I'll get my assistant to book more plane tickets. Qin Yu could not hide the smile on his lips and immediately sent a message to Yang Xian. He asked Yang Xian to arrange for him to go to our nation tomorrow to film. After Yang Xian suddenly received Qin Yu's message, he could not help but call him directly, but was quickly hung up. He could only bombard Qin Yu with messages. Yang Xian? Yang Xian, dog? Hung up on me? Yang Xian, didn't you say next month? Tomorrow? Why don't you go to heaven? Qin Yu's slender fingers typed slowly. Tomorrow. Seeing the message, Yang Xian was speechless. He really wanted to know what had happened to Qin Yu today. Half a month ago, Qin Yu was still very cold and heartless in front of the company's higher-ups. It's not impossible for me to go to our nation to film an MV. We'll talk about it in 2 months. If it really doesn't work, then forget it. At this thought, Yang Xian took a deep breath and could only work overtime to arrange for Qin Yu to go overseas to film an MV tomorrow. Soon. Yang Xian regained his senses. Yang Xian, 2 plane tickets. Whose is the other one? Qin Yu, my sister's. My sister is going to be an exchange student. I'll go with her. Seeing this, Yang Xian almost wanted to smash his phone. So, Qin Yu had tormented the entire company to work overtime for him just to accompany his sister to school? Was this something a normal person would do? After everything was settled, Qin Yu was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he stayed here for the night. Bei Yunj wanted to find an opportunity to talk to Huashidu several times, but Qin Yu caught her and chatted with her. He didn't look like the cold and aloof best actor at all. He was a living example of a clingy sister complex. Until the next day. Bei Yunj's expression did not look too good, so she decided to ignore Qin Yu. It was not until she saw the man in a suit coming downstairs that Bei Yunj dragged her suitcase forward. Brother, are you taking me there today? Huashidu glanced at the young lady with bright black eyes in front of him. How could he not know what she was thinking? This child was afraid that he would be angry. Huashidu's lips curled up imperceptibly. Then, he only responded faintly. Before Bei Yunj could react, he took Bei Yunj's luggage. Get in the car first. I'll put the things away. Huashidu was not angry. He just wanted to tease this child. All these years, Huashidu rarely had any negative emotions. He had always lived a methodical life. However, ever since Bei Yunj moved in, it was the first time Huashidu realized that he had such bad thoughts. He always wanted to bully this little girl. Okay. Bei Yunj turned around and took Huashidu's front passenger seat. Chapter 795. Qin Yu, who had been looking at Bei Yunj, was very silent. Soon. Qin Yu pursed his lips and walked in front of Huashidu. Master Du, Huashidu looked up. What's wrong? Do you think that there's something wrong with my gu? Qin Yu asked tentatively. Huashidu paused and glanced at him carelessly. No. No? Then why is gu sticking to you and not me? Qin Yu asked from the bottom of his heart. Hearing this, the light in the man's eyes darkened. Even the light in his eyes disappeared as he looked at Qin Yu carelessly. How do you want her to stick to you? After getting into the car. Huashidu turned around and met the other party's clear black eyes. Seatbelt. Huashidu had just finished speaking, and before he could fasten his seatbelt, the person beside him suddenly grabbed his hand. The man turned around and her smiling voice sounded in his ear. Brother, I don't think the zipper on my back is closed. Huashidu raised an eyebrow. He had a feeling that the little fox in front of him was at it again. Just as expected. In the next moment, Bei Yunj smirked and said, It's actually fine to wear it out like this. It's just a little exposed. Huashidu was speechless. Soon. Huashidu's deep and pleasant voice sounded in Bei Yunj's ear. Come here. Bei Yunj's lips curled up and she leaned closer to Huashidu naturally. Before Huashidu's eyes could land on her fair back, the girl's hand suddenly rested lightly on his shoulder. The faint fragrance on her body lingered at the tip of his nose. The girl's hair rubbed against his sexy Adam's apple and his eyes darkened. 361 reading, brother, I'll be scared if I'm alone overseas. Bei Yunj's eyes curved and she leaned her head on the man's shoulder naturally. Huashidu also endured it. Only then did his slender and well-defined hand touch the zipper on her back. He lowered his eyes casually and did not look at the dazzling snow-white skin on her back. However, his hand pulled up gently. Seeing that Huashidu was silent, Bei Yunj deliberately hissed softly in his ear, wanting to see his reaction. As expected. The man's movements paused. Very soon. Before Huashidu could react, Bei Yunj retreated into his arms. She flipped her long hair in a serious manner. Her bright and beautiful eyes were filled with a lazy smile. Let's drive. Brother, why are you pulling the zipper so slow? Obviously, the child knew that he wasn't angry. He did it on purpose. Bei Yunj thought about the past few times when this man had deliberately teased her after getting drunk. This time, she was in a good mood. However, she did not know that Huashidu, who was beside her, was staring straight at her. His eyes could not be seen clearly. Yun. Bei Yunj had just turned her head when the man bent down and pressed his face against her neck. His low and hoarse laughter, along with his hot breath on her neck, made her shiver unconsciously. The man's arm gently wrapped around her back. From the window, it looked like he was hugging her. The next moment, his handsome eyes were a little careless and mischievous. His voice was low and lazy. It was frivolous and flirtatious. It made her ears burn. Brother, you don't put on clothes quickly. It's faster to take off clothes. Bei Yunj's heart skipped a beat for some reason. She also felt the man's unconcealed gaze. Immediately after, the man chuckled casually. After straightening up, he slowly raised his hand and fastened Bei Yunj's seatbelt. Bei Yunj, she could not beat him. Chapter 796. Bei Yunj froze unconsciously at the thought of the man's words by her ear just now. She slowly turned around and looked at the scenery outside the window. Huashidu's voice sounded. Getting you to look for you in Nili in the afternoon. If there's anything, she'll settle it for you. Okay. Bei Yunj leaned against the car window, far away from Huashidu. Seeing this, Huashidu smirked silently and stopped teasing her. At the airport. Although Qin Yu's schedule had been changed at the last minute, there were still fans who had received news of Qin Yu's schedule through private channels and were waiting at the airport. Bei Yunja's eyebrows moved. Then, she heard Qin Yu say, "Master Du, bring Gu-er in first. I'll go in and look for her later." Huashidu naturally took the luggage and placed the paper bag on it. He turned around and glanced at Bei Yunj. Yun. Bei Yunj followed beside Huashidu and suddenly found this paper bag a little familiar. "What's inside?" Huashidu's lips curled up and he handed the paper bag to Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj glanced at him and instinctively lowered her head to open the paper bag. She saw something familiar. Bei Yunj, who met the teddy bear's eyes again, was speechless. "What is this?" "Miss, let me take it for you." Tseng Su was already panicking when he saw Huashidu personally take Bei Yunja's luggage. Now that he found an opportunity, he immediately reached out, wanting to take the paper bag from Bei Yunja's hand. But then, Bei Yunj immediately closed the paper bag and stuffed it back into Huashidu's hand. She looked up at the handsome and dignified man in front of her, her face expressionless. When did she let him bring this along? The man's thin red lips curled up slightly and he scratched her chin gently. His voice was low and seductive, and his tone was intimate and coaxing. "Be good. Our Yun wants to sleep well." At the security check, Bei Yunj watched as the paper bag was held by the security officer and started to feel numb. "Can I trouble Miss to turn around for inspection? My family's Miss is thin-skinned, she'll be angry with me later." The man's deep and magnetic voice contained a low chuckle that made people blush and their hearts race. It was frivolous but not frivolous. At this moment, the young ladies behind her, as well as the security inspector on duty, felt their hearts beating wildly when they heard this. This gentleman is too cool. Especially when looking at this mister's face, it was simply too lethal. The girls in the back row were very curious about what was in the paper bag. Okay. The security inspector suppressed his racing heartbeat and turned to open the paper bag again. After seeing what was inside, she couldn't help but smile. Then, she reached out and pinched it to check if there was any problem. After the inspection, the security officer returned the phone to Bei Yunj, who was standing in front of him. He also wanted to pinch the face of this unbelievably beautiful girl. This person was too cute, the contrast was too cute. Her appearance and temperament were clearly unruly, bright and flamboyant. One look and anyone could tell that she was not someone to be trifled with. In the end, there was such a cute little bear in the bag. The security inspector's heart was already bursting with love from these two people. She had a motherly smile on her face and was screaming crazily in her heart. This was too sweet. However, Bei Yunj pulled up her mask and glanced at Huashidu. Then, she snatched the luggage and left with the paper bag in one hand. Her back view was valiant and cool. "Why does Miss seem angry?" Tseng Su asked carefully and in confusion. Chapter 797. Tseng Su turned around and was shocked to find that Master Du was actually smiling. Miss Pei was already angry, but he was still smiling. Tseng Su felt his heart skip a beat. At this moment, Bei Yunj had just come out of the washroom. Her backpack seemed to be filled with something as it was a little bulging. Gu-er? Bei Yunj was wearing a mask as she sat beside Qin Yu. Qin Yu smiled. "Do you want to eat anything after getting off the plane?" "No, Zhong. Our school has arranged for the students to stay in the same dormitory. I'm going back directly." Hearing this, Qin Yu was a little disappointed. "I see. Then when is Gu-er free to call second brother?" Qin Yu asked. Bei Yunj replied, "Okay." Seeing this, Qin Yu's thin lips curled up. After feeling that someone was taking photos of them, he took off his sunglasses. In the next moment, before Bei Yunj could react, a dark gaze suddenly covered her eyes. Qin Yu had put on his sunglasses. Bei Yunj had just looked up when she saw Qin Yu's ink-like eyes. There was a gentle smile on his face as he supported his head lazily. He was a handsome young man with a tall frame. He was wearing a loose black t-shirt that made his skin look cold and fair. There were black English words tattooed on the inside of his arm that was supporting his chin. His posture was lazy and arrogant. Why is my Gu-er so good-looking? After Bei Yunj regained her senses, she realized that Qin Yu was preventing her from being photographed. The fans beside them almost screamed. Brother Yu was always cold and indifferent in front of the camera. Why was he so good at flirting in private? Several die-hard fans had already recognized that this was their brother Yu's precious sister. His sister's appearance could be seen even with sunglasses. She was extremely beautiful. Parkway, they were indeed biological. Their entire family had such strong genes. At this moment, Bei Yunj was sitting inside and playing with her phone. She had already received more than 10 messages. Bei Yunj replied to Huashidu first before continuing to look at the others' messages. She clicked into Zhong Xinglin's chat and saw that Zhong Xinglin wanted to tell Marcus and the others about her arrival in Country R today. Bei Yunj immediately rejected him. If Marcus came, there was no guarantee that Tich and Jasmine would come as well. When the time came, Delaney would know the news and she would have another problem. Thinking of this, Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. She wanted to go back as soon as possible even before she arrived in Country R. Next, Bei Yunj had just exited the chat when she saw Du Xiao's message. Du Xiao, Gu-er, did you apply for leave to come to Country R? Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. She had no idea where the news had come from. Then, she continued to read the messages. Du Xiao, just in time. Come to the association to take the test when you're free. Du Xiao, train hard and strive to get the C-level qualification directly. In the International Musicians Association, only Du Xiao and some veteran gods who had retired from the association were A-class. The other students with the best aptitudes were B or C grade. And there were only 3 people who had obtained B-class qualifications. As for A-class, only musicians who could be considered a milestone of an era were qualified to obtain this level. Everyone who could obtain A-class had to have at least 3 songs that were recognized by the industry. However, this year, Bei Yunj had 2 songs that had been sent to the judges. Bei Yunj was not in the mood and replied to him slowly. Got it. Du Xiao, who saw this message, was also very worried. He could clearly feel that Bei Yunj's mind was not on music. Chapter 798. In Du Xiao's opinion, with Bei Yunj's talent, it was not difficult for her to get an A rank. However, Bei Yunj's output was low and she was still unwilling to put in effort. At this rate, he did not know when she would be able to get an A rank. This time, even a B rank was difficult for Du Xiao. Bei Yunj did not care about this. She only read the documents for a few hours. After her phone ran out of battery, she closed her eyes to rest. Seeing this, Qin Yu, who was beside her, smirked and gently took Bei Yunj's phone to charge it for her. More than 10 hours later, after getting off the plane, because Qin Yu was too popular, his fans overseas had surrounded him. He could only watch as Zhong Xinglin and the rest took Bei Yunj away. But not long after, Qin Yu suddenly realized something. Was Hengda's resources that good? Gu, or was actually led by old Mr. Zhong when she went overseas for an exchange? Besides, why weren't there any other students in the team? Qin Yu could not help feeling puzzled and walked out of the airport quickly. In the car. I really didn't expect Bei Yunj's brother to be Qin Yu. He's so handsome. Other than Bei Yunj, the only 2 female researchers present could not help but discuss. Isn't that so? He even bought plane tickets for us. He's handsome and rich. The other female researcher, who was younger and in her early 30s, was already staring at him with starry eyes. Zhong Xinglin and Si Chengyan were speechless. They really did not dare to tell anyone else. If Qin Yu had not insisted on accompanying Bei Yunj, the higher-ups would have already decided to charter a plane to send them to our nation because of Bei Yunj. Later, before Zhong Xinglin could finish speaking, the car suddenly stopped and everyone in the car almost cursed. The driver started to panic. Dean He, there are many cars blocking the way. Hearing this. At first, everyone thought that it was a traffic jam. Later, they realized that something was wrong. Someone was specially blocking them. Suddenly. Ling Du's e-book. Si Chengyan asked coldly, Master Pei, are they here to assassinate you? Bei Yunj, then, Si Chengyan muttered to himself, no, this isn't a confidentiality measure for you. It's already very strict. How could anyone know that she's in our car? The others also had the same doubts and wanted to know the truth. And not long after. After Director He got out of the car, he got into the car again. He looked at Bei Yunj. He's here for you. Alarm bells rang in everyone's hearts. Quick, hide Bai Mingzhang hurriedly ordered. And not long after. After Director He got out of the car, he got into the car again. He looked at Bei Yunj. He's here for you. Alarm bells rang in everyone's hearts. Quick, hide Bai Mingzhang hurriedly ordered. Bei Yunj, at this time, the researchers on the bus were in a panic, not knowing where to hide such a big living person. Then, Dean He's eyelids twitched. It's someone who knows and wants to go over. He reminded her, no. At this moment, everyone finally realized that that person didn't know Bei Yunj's identity. I know him. Bei Yunj raised an eyebrow with interest. After getting out of the car. Bei Yunj was speechless when she saw more than 10 imposing black cars. She probably knew which family was looking for her. This strong aura of a wealthy family, just as expected. Bei Yunj had just been arranged to get into the car when she saw an old man in formal clothes. Chapter 799. The next moment. Bei Yunj heard the old man ask, "You're the bad girl that Shidu raised?" The first time he spoke to her, he was cheated of hundreds of millions. Fernans had a deep impression of this guy. "Where did you get the news from, sir?" Bei Yunj curled her lips lazily. She did not mind Fernan's angry look. Instead, she asked leisurely. After all, with her brother's personality, he would not take the initiative to mention her to this person. "You want to know?" The old man's expression was cold as the corners of his mouth twitched and he asked coldly. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and did not want to talk anymore. "Can I go back now?" When the old man heard this, he immediately became angry. "Why don't you respect the old and love the young at all? Have you ever seen a bad girl respect the old and love the young?" Bei Yunj seemed to have thought of something. Suddenly, the corners of her lips curled up as she said leisurely, "In this line of work, we like to run away after cheating money." These words made the old man speechless. He looked at Bei Yunj in shock. It was also the first time the butler had met such a young girl with a temperament that he couldn't figure out. Why would Master Do like such a girl? Was it because she was good-looking? "How dare you?" I. Fernans was speechless. Suddenly. Bei Yunj's eyes curved as she asked, "Grandpa, I'm hungry. Can I go to your place for a meal?" Fernans was stunned for a moment before he instinctively said, "Sure." However, after Bei Yunj finished her call and spoke to Zhong Xinglin, Fernans finally realized why he was so good to this bad girl. OK Composition Network Bayesian Manor. The European-style hall was magnificent. Outside the bright and tall windows, there were roses and green plants. Fernans crossed his arms and looked unhappily at Bei Yunj, who was eating dinner. After a while, Bei Yunj stabbed a piece of steak with a silver fork. She glanced at the schedule that Zhong Xinglin had arranged for her as she slowly chewed on it. "Why are you playing with your phone while eating?" Fernan snatched her phone and put it somewhere Bei Yunj could not get to it. Bei Yunj stopped eating. "Have you not eaten for 10 years? Why didn't Shidu teach you to eat properly?" Fernan snatched Bei Yunj's porcelain plate, picked up the unused knife and fork, and carefully cut it. She placed the cut steak on the white plate in front of Bei Yunj and muttered with a frown, "What's wrong with eating like this? You better eat properly." In fact, although Bei Yunj's table manners were not very proper, she was good-looking and her movements were elegant. However, the old man was born in a noble family and had followed the most meticulous etiquette his entire life. Hence, when the butler asked the servants to bring in a few more dishes, this was the scene that greeted his eyes. The old man, who had never served anyone in his 8 lifetimes, was seriously cutting the steak for Bei Yunj. When he saw that Bei Yunj had eaten too much, he even handed her a glass of water. The butler was speechless. If the young masters in the family saw this scene, they would probably think that she was the old man's illegitimate daughter. "Don't just eat meat. You have to eat more vegetables too." Fernans forgot the reason why he was looking for Bei Yunj and instructed the butler, "Prepare fruit juice for her next time. She's still growing." The butler said. "Okay. Didn't he say that he wanted to intimidate Master Du's little girl? What are you doing? Using the coldest way to feed her the most delicious food while Master Du doesn't know?" Chapter 800. It was not until Bei Yunj finished eating that Fernans nodded in satisfaction. "That was more like it. Sir, the room prepared for Miss has also been arranged." The butler reminded him appropriately. Hearing this, Bei Yunj said, "No need. I have a place to stay." "Thank you, Mr. Butler." Fernans frowned and looked at Bei Yunj. "You want to stay outside?" "Yes, I'm here as an exchange student this time." "I'm staying in the student dormitory," Bei Yunj said calmly. Fernans was silent for a moment before he said, "Call someone to pick you up at 1:00 that night. Neely is not as safe as Yuncheng at night." Bei Yunj replied, "Okay." Fernans nodded in satisfaction and said, "There's a study on the 2nd floor. Are you going to do your homework?" Bei Yunj looked up at him. "I don't do homework." Fernans, ? Very good, very self-righteous. Fernans comforted himself silently in his heart. It was okay. It didn't matter if he was a bad student. It was already rare enough for Shidu to like women. What else could he be picky about? Fernans had always seen the younger generation in the family. Most of them were mature and wanted to study every day. A few hedonistic sons did not dare to say in front of Fernans that they did not like to study or do homework. Hence, Fernans thought for a long time but did not know how to get along with the bad students. He could only say, "There's a television over there. Go watch it." The butler, if this continued, Fernans's biological granddaughter would be proven to be true. Bei Yunj's eyes twitched. "Okay. Soon." Bei Yunj sat on the sofa on the other side, randomly picked a program, and read documents on her phone. "Come and read." Fernans, who was not far away, looked at Bei Yunj with a numb gaze. It was obvious that she was hopeless. Then, just as Fernans was about to go upstairs to calm down, hearty laughter suddenly sounded from the door. "Fernans, I just came to look for you and you're already going upstairs?" Fernans turned around and saw old Mr. Angel with his beloved granddaughter beside him. "Why did you bring Lilia here so late at night?" Fernans still had a displeased look on his face. Angel was also used to his old friend's sour face. He smiled vaguely. "Didn't I hear that something happened to your family again?" Fernans glanced at him and said indifferently, "Your information is really accurate. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pry into your family's situation." But Fernans, I've seen that child a few times. He's very outstanding. Are you willing to send him away? Angel asked. What happened to the Fernandes family was nothing else. Instead, someone had waited for too long and was impatient. They wanted to force Fernandes to hand over his real power and take over as soon as possible. However, what he did not expect was that even if Fernandes did not interfere in the family's affairs, his methods were still ruthless. They directly captured him and threw him into a city where his power was marginalized. This was no different from forcing him to withdraw from the battle for the position of successor. As I said, I already have a suitable successor in mind. Fernandes glanced at him unhappily. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and scolded, "Keep your voice down. There are children watching TV over there." Mr. Angel, subsequently. Angel and Lilia were both curious. Fernandes was famous for being strict with the younger generation of the family. Which junior was watching TV and was actually so favored? Lilia took a few glances but could not see anyone. Chapter 801. He turned around. Angel smiled and said, "Actually, I brought Lilia here to discuss something with you." When Fernandes looked at him, she heard him say, "Marriage alliance. How about marrying your heir?" If this was in the past, Fernandes would have agreed quickly. But at this moment, Fernandes' eyelids twitched. He glanced at the person watching TV not far away and his lips twitched. No need. With that said, Fernandes turned around and wanted to go upstairs, but was stopped by Angel. "Why aren't you willing?" Angel raised his voice. Lilia, who was beside him, was also surprised and frowned. She liked Washidu and knew that he had a woman by his side. However, could it be that Fernandes would admit to that woman? What's the use of me being willing? I'm not the one getting married. Fernandes rolled his eyes and thought for a moment before saying, "Besides, I don't lack a granddaughter-in-law." "What do you mean? Don't tell me you think that the Delaney family is doing better now and don't like my family?" Angel frowned. Now that the Delaney group had the help of that new scientific researcher, its development could be said to have improved by leaps and bounds. However, our nation's plate was only so big. If the Delaney family ate more, there would naturally be families who ate less. And this unlucky family happened to be the Angel family. After all, Angel and Delaney were the closest to each other in most industries. This was like celebrities clashing. There would always be one who would be eliminated. Boring. Fernandes snorted. At this moment, Lilia said, "Grandpa Fernandes, you know that I like Shidu very much. Can't you give me a chance?" This time, if not for the fact that the Delaney family had jumped into the four big families and endangered the Angel family's position, her grandfather and her aunt, Elena, would not have agreed to her taking the initiative to fight for the marriage alliance. Seeing that Fernandes did not relent, Angel said in a low voice, "Fernandes, that person from the Higgins family is back." Hearing this, Fernandes turned to look at him. "What? Shang Yen is back?" Angel's thoughts were heavy. "I heard that he has the intention to work with the Delaney family. If that was the case, wouldn't the Higgins family be preparing to make a comeback? What about the Angel family? Sooner or later, they would be kicked out of the four great clans." Fernandes was silent for a moment. "Angel, if you're really worried about losing your position, you should spend more time on the business. Besides, your daughter is so outstanding. What are you afraid of? Elena is outstanding, so I handed the family over to her early on." Angel wanted to say something but hesitated. But, Elena was Angel's daughter, and she was talented in business. He was proud of it. However, Elena's methods were too cruel. In fact, after taking over the clan, he even set up quite a few shady businesses. Even after Elena took over the family had prospered day by day. But Angel was also afraid that one day, his family would be defeated by Elena. The variable in the Delaney family is because of that young researcher. Or, do you want to try changing the research team? Fernand's thought for a moment. Angel's eyelids twitched. Even if we switch, it'll be difficult to compare to that new scientific researcher. She was nominated for both Farizik and Busaka this year. So powerful? Fernand's was surprised. How old is the new noble? It is said that he is very young, in his 30s. Chapter 802. So young? Fernand's was shocked. I heard that she's from country A. To be nominated for the highest awards in the academic world at such a young age, she was indeed a top-notch genius. At this moment, Bei Yunj, who was on the sofa, was reading Tich and Jasmine's report. He was immersed in self-doubt and did not notice that someone was discussing behind him. Angel smiled bitterly. That's right. I'm afraid there's no other scientific research genius like her in our nation. With that said, Angel had thought that Fernand's would at least comfort him. Unexpectedly, this old thing was silent for a long time before he sighed. How good would it be if she was from my family? Angel's eyelids twitched. Fernand still told the truth. Shidu has an ordinary girl by his side. Although she doesn't have a good temperament and isn't ambitious, she's beautiful. With that, Fernand nodded affirmatively, as if he was hypnotizing himself. Yes, it's good that she's beautiful. Heartless old man, in his next life. The marriage is feasible, but Shidu has other arrangements. Why don't you choose someone else? From Fernand's words, it was obvious that his grandson, who had the worst relationship with Fernand's, held a high position in his heart. Then, Angel was in disbelief. You're willing to accept this? Why do I have to worry so much? Isn't it fine as long as he's happy? At first, he thought that this was a favored junior of the Fernand's family. Yes. Fernand's raised his chin and gestured for them to look at the television. There, she's over there. You can greet her, but don't scare her. Angel suddenly looked up. That's the girl Shidu is raising? Continue watching TV. Fernand's immediately said. Fernand's coughed lightly. Perhaps it was because the voice had suddenly become louder. Bei Yunj could not help but raise his eyebrows and glance at Fernand's and the rest. Fernand's gave them a fake smile. Yes, she doesn't like to do homework, so we can only let her watch TV. Angel. She was indeed not motivated. Bei Yunj was silent for a moment before he turned around. At this moment. All right, I'll send you guys off first. Fernand's was about to get rid of her when he suddenly heard Lilia say, Miss, do you still remember me? He was really treating his granddaughter as his own granddaughter. However, she was indeed beautiful. Her beauty was irresistible to both the East and West. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. I remember. Lilia clenched her fists. She didn't expect it to be her. Hearing this, Bei Yunj turned around and saw a blonde woman. It was the female celebrity who had knocked on the door to look for Shidu when she was video chatting with him at the hotel. Bei Yunj glanced at her and then looked away. International exchange student. Really? What a coincidence. I'm a student at Neely University. I wonder if I have the chance to meet you at Neely University? Old Mr. Fernand's actually accepted such a person. Miss, is this your first time in country R? What are you here for? Lilia did it on purpose. She remembered Fernand's words just now and could roughly guess that the girl in front of her was just lucky that Shidu had taken a fancy to her. She did not think that Bei Yunj could be an exchange student at Neely University. However, Lilia did not notice that as soon as she finished speaking, Fernand's expression darkened. Chapter 803. Isn't it very late? Bad girl, call your teacher and get someone to pick you up. Fernand's interrupted her and said calmly. This made Lilia's expression stiffen. She instinctively looked at Fernand's. It was not difficult to sense that Fernand's was protecting Bei Yunj. She pursed her lips and was about to say something when Angel stopped her. Bei Yunj replied, okay. But unexpectedly, Bei Yunj called Zhong Xinglin and the rest several times, but no one picked up. Didn't he say that he was coming to pick her up an hour ago? However, Fernand was very happy to see her. You can't get through? It's fine if you can't get through. I've already prepared a room for you on the second floor. Butler, get someone to bring her upstairs. The butler's eyelids twitched. After answering, he immediately arranged for the maid to bring Bei Yunj upstairs. Only Angel and Lilia did not look too good. On the other side, near the pier, Si Qingyan held a cigarette between his fingers and looked at the two drunk old men expressionlessly. He did not notice that there were a few missed calls on his phone. If he had not stopped him just now, the news the next day would have been, Zhong Xinglin and Marcus, the pioneers of the computing field in country A and R, suspected of jumping into the sea to commit suicide. Before Si Qingyan could take out his phone, he suddenly heard Marcus crying in grief and indignation. Why can Lanjun pick it up but I can't? Boo-hoo, why am I not her grandfather? Si Qingyan's eyelids twitched, and he gave up on playing with his phone. Good Lord, he was so drunk that he had designs on Bei Yunj? Soon. Marcus's words resonated with Zhong Xinglin. The two of them hugged and cried sadly. Si Qingyan took a deep breath. The two of you left? It's already very late. We still have work to do tomorrow. At this moment, Zhong Xinglin and Marcus ignored Si Qingyan. Instead, after crying for a long time, Zhong Xinglin suddenly looked up and patted Marcus's back, comforting him. Marcus, you are. Marcus was greatly moved and comforted each other. Zhong, you too. Si Qingyan was speechless. Shouldn't you ask Bei Yunj if you're the same? He should really record this scene and show it to Bei Yunj. However, in the blink of an eye, Si Qingyan realized that something was wrong with the two of them. Crooked? How are you? I'm your grandfather. Marcus held the phone and started to giggle. Si Qingyan had a bad feeling. Marcus, what are you doing? Marcus ignored Si Qingyan and just leaned against Zhong Xinglin in a drunken stupor. The corners of the person's mouth twitched. This is the Nili police station. Please don't use the line. What did he say? Marcus turned his head and asked. Zhong Xinglin, he said, burp, he's from the Nili police station. Si Qingyan's body trembled and he immediately went forward to snatch Zhong Xinglin and Marcus's phones. Were the two of them unhappy about not making the headlines tonight? Did they have to make such a big fuss? Si Qingyan only sent the two of them back at 1:00 in the morning. On the other side, Fue Rose Manor. Lilia bit her lip and walked into the hall aggressively in her high heels. Why, are you bullied? Then you can marry someone else. The woman in the purple dress smiled disapprovingly. Fernand likes that girl a lot. Why? How can I not compare to that girl? Lilia could not hold back her anger and sneered. She's so ordinary. I wonder if those people from the Fernand's family are blind. Chapter 804. Lilia turned around and saw that Elena was unmoved. She said, Auntie, I'm indignant. She's just an ordinary high school student. A high school student? Why did she come to Nili? Elena turned around and asked. She's an exchange student, but she's probably an exchange student from some random university. Lilia's tone was mocking. A top school like Nili University would not casually recruit high school exchange students. Elena raised an eyebrow. Not long after, she sneered. Alright, isn't this easy to deal with? In Nili, accidents are the most common. Hearing this, Lilia froze. Auntie, you're talking about, if he's no longer around, how can I snatch him from you? Elena asked slowly. Lilia's expression changed. Auntie, there's no need. Elena looked at her sideways and smiled coldly. Lilia, don't you want that man? I'll snatch him back from her, Auntie. Lilia said in a firm tone, and hurriedly ran upstairs to give Strength Literature Network. Elena's tone was mocking. She's also useless. Stupid and timid. The next day, when Si Qingyan went to pick up Bei Yunj according to the address, he couldn't help but be surprised. This address was a famous wealthy district in Nili. And the Bai Sheng manor was home to the number 1 family, the Fernandes family. How did Bei Yunj know the Fernandes family? After walking out, Bei Yunj looked at Si Qingyan. Why didn't you come to pick me up yesterday? Si Qingyan. Marcus and Elder Zhong were drunk yesterday and couldn't leave. Bei Yunj thought about the person at home who could not hold his liquor well and nodded in understanding. Let's go to the computing institute in our nation first. I still have something to look for Tich and the rest. Bei Yunj sat in the front passenger seat and said slowly. Si Qingyan was silent for a long time. Actually, the professor of the mathematics department of Nili University has asked you out several times. Bei Yunj turned to look at him and said word by word, no. Si Qingyan, all right, sorry for the trouble. Don't make trouble for me. Bei Yunj lowered her head, her tone casual and indifferent. It wasn't because he had a feud with the Nili University mathematics professor. It was because there were many professors in the mathematics department of Nili University. In the past month, more than 10 professors had added Bei Yunj's private account, but the rest had not. Bei Yunj saw different professors asking her almost every day when she would change her major and if she had any intention of joining the math department at Nili University. If she went to Nili University's mathematics department today, with those people's persistence, she didn't even know if she could leave Nili University. However, Si Qingyan looked down and did not say anything. But an hour later, Bei Yunj glanced at the red brick buildings outside the window. Young men and women were coming and going. Not far away, there were green rivers and white geese, reflecting the blue sky and clouds. She realized that something was wrong. Where is this? Si Qingyan bit the bullet and continued driving. Nili University. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. Stop the car. Master Pei, don't. We've already discussed this with the principal of Nili University. Si Qingyan ignored Bei Yunj's cold gaze. Soon. Bei Yunj suddenly smiled. You're not stopping, right? Si Qingyan suddenly had an ominous feeling, suddenly. The steering wheel in his hand was grabbed by a cold and beautiful hand and turned around. F***CK, wait a minute. What are you doing? Stop. Si Qingyan could not win against Bei Yunj and saw that the car was about to fall into the clear river beside him. Chapter 805. The next moment. Si Qingyan hurriedly grabbed the steering wheel and turned the car back steadily. However, the girl sitting next to him opened the door and jumped out of the car without anyone noticing. Bei Yunj? Si Qingyan immediately stopped the car. When he got out of the car, she was already gone. It was over. Old Master Zhong was going to kill him when he woke up. Si Qingyan rubbed his glabella and called the people from Nili University. Vast sky-green field, by the river. The exquisite-looking girl pursed her lips. Her beautiful gray eyes were emotionless. What attracted attention was her thick white curly hair. Caitlin, who exactly is your father? The men and women surrounding her had unfriendly smiles on their faces as they asked casually, could he really be a rapist? Caitlin hugged the folder in her hand and said coldly, get lost. Oh, are you angry? How about I let you go after a smoke? The young man deliberately stood in front of Caitlin and handed the cigarette in his hand to her with evil intentions. Caitlin looked up and wanted to slap his hand away. But then, she heard a gloomy laugh in her ear. Your flower protector isn't here today. Can you leave after offending me? Smoke one and I'll let you go. How about that? The people beside them were watching the show. They turned on their cameras and prepared to film this scene. Caitlin's eyes were cold and murderous as her thoughts ran wild. However, not long after, she clenched her fists, took a deep breath, and reached out to the cigarette the young man handed her. The people around were watching a good show. But suddenly, there was a rustling sound from the water. Everyone subconsciously looked in that direction and suddenly saw a figure break out of the water. They were so frightened that they instinctively took half a step back. However, on closer inspection, they realized that the person was too beautiful. Her black hair was wet, her lips were red, and her teeth were white. Her eyes were wild but charming, and her sharp chin was still dripping with water. Ebook workshop, everyone was scared out of their wits and could not react. Why did a person jump out of the river? Bei Yunj glanced at them casually and her gaze landed on Caitlin. Before Caitlin could react, a clear and arrogant voice rang in her ears. "May I borrow a cigarette, classmate?" Caitlin was stunned. Before she could react, Bei Yunj had already walked to her side, took her cigarette, and was ready to leave. At this moment, Caitlin's mind was still filled with the scene of Bei Yunj breaking out of the water. This was the first time she had seen such a beautiful girl. "Stop!" A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "Who told you to grab the cigarettes?" The young man was furious. He looked at Bei Yunj in front of him. He didn't expect something like this to happen. They were using this cigarette to tease Caitlin, but someone actually dared to steal it so blatantly. At this very moment, Bei Yunj lazily bit the cigarette butt. After a while, his eyes dimmed. There was something wrong with this cigarette. Moments later, she stopped in her tracks and turned around. Her bright and flamboyant eyes were still unruly as she asked leisurely, "What's the matter?" Looking at Bei Yunj biting the cigarette, he was speechless. "All right, hurry up and leave." The young man could also tell that this person was not someone to be trifled with, so he did not want to complicate matters. However, after that, Bei Yunj's eyes landed on the silent Caitlin. She walked leisurely in front of Caitlin and suddenly laughed. There seemed to be light in her eyes. Caitlin looked up and saw this scene. Bei Yunj shook the cigarette in his hand and said with a smile, "Classmate, a cigarette in exchange for a wish." Chapter 806. Caitlin's butterfly eyelashes trembled as she pursed her pale pink lips. Bei Yunj could see the cold vigilance in her eyes. Her eyes curved and she couldn't help but lean over and joke, "Are you going to leave me alone? Do you want to elope with me?" Suddenly, Caitlin's heart skipped a beat as she looked up at the person in front of her. But before she could regain her senses, someone suddenly grabbed her wrist and ran forward. The people behind immediately reacted. She was taken away. "This guy took her away!" someone exclaimed. Instantly, the young man flew into a rage. "Am I King blind? If you see her, why aren't you chasing after her?" On the huge campus street, the people behind were desperately chasing after her. The people in front, one of them had a smile on her face and an unruly look in her eyes. The other was blushing and almost out of breath. A few minutes later, Caitlin stopped and held her knees with both hands, panting. I can't take it anymore." Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. At this moment, the people behind were almost catching up. "Hurry up and leave. I'll be fine." Caitlin felt a little pain in her heart and her expression was a little ugly. However, before Bei Yunj could look, a sharp voice sounded. "Run? Where are you going?" Bei Yunj looked up and saw a group of people coming over aggressively. She laughed casually and walked towards them. She stretched the joints of her arms and said slowly, "You guys are the ones who came looking for me." Hearing that, the young man sneered. Before he could say anything, the unbelievably beautiful and exquisite girl in front of him punched him in the abdomen. Cold sweat broke out on his face and the veins on his forehead bulged. He howled in pain and fell to the ground. This scene made the scalps of the others tingle. Line up one by one if you want to die. I'm in a hurry to change my clothes. Bei Yunj moved her neck uncomfortably. Her tone was cold and impatient as she slowly wrung the water from the corner of her clothes. This scene aroused the anger of the crowd. The first person to react rushed forward and threw a punch at her. But the next moment. However, the beautiful and thin girl in front of him dodged the attack even faster and grabbed the man's neck with one hand. Then, he kicked him in the abdomen with his knee. The young man's face contorted as he clutched his abdomen and knelt in front of Bei Yunj. This scene also dispelled the thoughts of the others in the group battle. This person was too ruthless, aren't you going to get lost? Bei Yunj looked up casually and asked with a faint smile. As soon as he finished speaking, the remaining 4 or 5 people ran away like a swarm of bees. Bei Yunj glanced at the girl next to her. There was something wrong with the cigarette just now. Don't pick it up so casually next time. After that, Bei Yunj was about to leave Neely University. It's half an hour from here to school. The person behind him suddenly spoke. When Bei Yunj turned her head, she heard Caitlin ask with her head lowered, "It'll only take 10 minutes to get to my dorm." In the dormitory, the roommates had just returned and pushed open Caitlin's door. They did not expect to see a girl with long, curly black hair. She was bright and beautiful and was wearing a white shirt. Her aura was impossible to ignore. You are, the roommate was about to stutter. Coincidentally, Caitlin walked out and handed Bei Yunj a clean white towel. This is unused. Thank you. Bei Yunj greeted everyone lazily and went to dry her hair. Just now, when she met Bei Yunj's eyes, her face inexplicably heated up. She turned around and asked, "Caitlin, this is? P.S. Be good and remember the monthly ticket." Chapter 807. If it was another woman who appeared in Caitlin's bedroom, they would not have thought too much. But the girl who had just walked into the bathroom was too ostentatious. She was born with a playful and lazy gaze, but it made one's heart race. Her lethality was too great. She was attractive to both men and women. Appearing in the bedroom in a loose white shirt, it was very easy for one's imagination to run wild. Caitlin reacted. She did not know Bei Yunj's name either. When Bei Yunj came out, she asked, "What's your name?" When her roommates heard this, their minds were in a mess. They didn't even know her name and she dared to bring her to the dormitory? What was the relationship between these two? Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj wiped her neck slightly. At this moment, Caitlin turned around and asked, "Why are you looking for me?" Her roommate reacted and said excitedly, "I heard that a big shot came to our school today." It was common for Neely University to see the big shots that everyone was talking about. But there were very few big shots that could make the students so excited. Caitlin looked up. "Who is it?" "The one who was nominated by Busaka and Farizik." "Ah." The girl could not help but be excited. "I don't know if there will be a speech, but the school is clearing the place today. Unrelated people are not allowed to enter." At this moment, Caitlin turned to look at Bei Yunj suspiciously. "How did you get in?" She was sure that this was not a student from their school. "International exchange student." Bei Yunj responded easily. Before Caitlin could say anything, the person beside her suddenly said, "Caitlin, do you want to go to the math department with us? What if you see her in person?" They were excited, but they did not notice that the girl beside them glanced at them and continued to wipe her black hair. "No, I have to go to class." Caitlin was a student of the chemistry department and had classes in the afternoon. When the others heard this, they were a little disappointed. "Which book website at this moment?" Caitlin turned and asked, "Do you want to go with me? You probably won't be able to leave Neely University before 4:30. This was a tradition of Neely University. Every time a big shot of this level came back, the school would be heavily guarded. Sure. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and agreed without thinking. On the way, Caitlin and Pei Yunja's figures attracted the attention of many people. When he sat in the classroom, he heard many people talking about it. Why did the school bell bring a girl to class? Family member. What? A girl? Wait, the one next to him is also beautiful. This is the first time I've seen such a beautiful face. They were all curious about the identity of the person beside the campus bell. She was even more eye-catching than the campus bell of Neely University. Go to sleep. Caitlin deliberately found a seat at the back so that Bei Yunj would not be seen by the professor. Pei Yunj hummed in response and pulled her jacket to cover her head skillfully. Caitlin, his skillful movements made him seem like a veteran. 20 minutes later. When the professor entered, the classroom fell completely silent. Unfortunately, he noticed the unknown object covered by the jacket at a glance. Caitlin, who had always been cold and indifferent, was nervous for the first time. She hesitated for a moment and pushed Pei Yunj beside her. Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj could not sleep well either. She quickly took off her coat and looked lazy with her fluffy hair. When the professor saw Bei Yunja's appearance clearly, his gaze changed and he sneered.